Okay. Sorry, my mic was off. I was all talking, thinking you guys could hear me, and you could not. I'm gonna hop into Discord. If anybody watching is in the AIU Discord and wants to come in too and read this article with me, feel free. Though I don't know how many people are on right now. Oh, four people watching. That's not bad. Do 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 do. Um.
Cancer
Oh
may be.
no. Mute. Okay. So let me open up this article. But yeah, Jezebel. I guess not specifically Jezebel, but somebody, one of their writers, released an article on Jezebel talking about Andrew Yang. Let me show it to you guys. Okay, see it? Oh, there it is. Let me make it bigger. Bleep. There you go. As you can see, it's called Drop Out Andrew Yang. This person wants him to drop out, and it's a woman named Esther Wang. Looks like a young Asian chick, which is fine. But here's some of her other articles. Elizabeth Warren is a leg woman. What? What kind of bullshit is that? Oh, again, Rudy Giuliani would like to clarify that he is actually a hero and not a crime guy. The misogyny of Greta Thunberg's critics. All Mike Pence wants is a kiss from Mother, new book reveals. Dun dun dun. Don Jr. and Ivanka are fighting. Like, what are these articles? Who cares? So weird. But yeah, that you can see what kind of articles this girl writes. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Let me check something out. Alright, so let's get on with this. Okay, so let's start from the beginning of Esther Wang's story here. It was easy initially to dismiss Andrew Yang as a joke. Yeah, a lot of people did, and now it's not as easy anymore. Now that he's rocketing up the lineup. When he first entered the primary, the startup guy turned presidential candidate's most distinguishing quality seemed to be his almost pathological aversion to wearing ties, which okay, but it's funny that pathological kind of insists that it's like a mental issue or something, but it's not. He just, he wants to look different. He wants to stick out, which is a good thing for a candidate to stand out from the other candidates. And a belief that giving all Americans over the age of 18 a universal base income, what he called his freedom dividend, would prepare us for a looming economic collapse driven by robots and automation. Well, at least he's trying to come up with a solution. As you see now, a lot of his fellow candidates are starting to copy him and his fears. Joe Biden just did an interview recently talking about people losing jobs to automation, and his solution is to do job training. But in the past, when America has done that, we've not had a good track record of it, so that hasn't been working. So at least he has something new to try out, as opposed to the same old solutions to the same problem. And if you look at the workforce, the labor force of America, we're at 63%, which is down from 67% 20 years ago. So, I mean, it's been a steady decline for a long time. And I think that it's going to continue. There's no signs of it stopping. With more automation, most likely it's going to keep dropping. And automation is exponential in growth. So, from like the 60s, or let's say from the 70s to the 90s, we automation was going up a bit, but from the 90s to now, it's gone up even faster. So that means from now to 2040, it's gonna go even faster than it was before. So, or at least that's what it looks like. That would be the projection you would assume would happen if it was to continue the way it was. Which we're seeing it all over the place now. But Yang himself often sums up his presidential run like this: "There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month." Yeah, yeah, that's the basic. There's way more than that, but that's kind of like the super basic way of saying it. Um, in recent months, Yang also became known for having a number of fans among white nationalists and the alt right. I want to see this. I want to see the numbers on this, like how many of these. Maybe the alt right, you can kind of, that's easier to tell, but I want to see who she is considering white nationalists, because it doesn't make any sense for a white nationalist to vote for an Asian man on top of like his policies not being a white nationalist. There's really no reason for them to vote for him, especially over Trump, who people are saying already have the white nationalist vote. So why are they switching from Trump to him when Yang is getting 10% of the votes? I think that's complete hogwash, and that she's just calling people white nationalists who are not white nationalists. They're probably just right wingers. Anyways, who seem to favorably interpret his UBI proposal as economic populism for the white working class, and also because, as one put it, generally speaking, white nationalists find Asians to be the most agreeable non-white group in our society. That's all very silly, but if they are seeing it like this, if they do favorably interpret his UBI proposal plan as economic populism for a white working class, then they would be wrong. It's favorably towards all working class, and it's favorable towards the entire country. So they would be wrong, and if they're voting for him for the wrong reasons, oh well. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he'll get in because a bunch of white nationalists voted for him for the wrong reason, and then it ends up benefiting everyone instead of just them, right? So either way, it makes the country better. So, oh well. Because as one put, oh, I read that right. For his stance against circumcision, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of irrelevant. And for challenging Ted Cruz to a game of pickup basketball, I don't think so. So he's gaining fans of white nationalists and alt-right for his stance against circumcision, which, if you don't know, in America, the majority of people who get circumcisions for their children are white people. So that's actually counterproductive to them. And challenging Ted Cruz to a game of pickup basketball? Why would white nationalists and alt-right people like that? I don't know, that's just weird. What a dumb thing to write in here. It seems like she got lost in her sentence and just started adding things in there for the sake of adding it. All of this raises some questions, or so, not really, or at the very least some eyebrows. No, not at all. About the sincerity of his stunt-heavy campaign, and he's built a small, if very vocal, coalition of disaffected young men and techies who are seduced by his so-called non-ideological technocratic vision. I don't think this is true. Most people I know, but obviously this is anecdotal and this is just me, but most people I know are my age that support Yang. Almost everybody I talk to that are fans of Yang are my age, like in their 40s, late 30s, early 40s, or late 30s to mid 40s. And none of us are techies. So, and even when I look at Yang Gang in the Twitters, and I see all the people that are in Yang Gang, some of them are young men, but a lot of them are women. A lot of them are older. There's some like retirement age people in there. There's people of all colors, of all races, of all, it's not really set to one type of person. I can look through like my list of people that I follow that are Yang Gang, and it's a very mixed bag, And hardly any of them are techies, to tell you the truth. Most of them are just normal people, middle class people, who are seduced by his so-called non-ideological technocratic vision. What? As well as the cool gleam of being given $1,000 a month. Well, I mean, that is an incentive and a benefit. I mean, I don't see why not. Yang started as a novelty, and now he's a novelty with some staying power, continuing to poll around 2 or 3% nationwide. A little higher than that now. One outlet has him at 8% nationwide. There you go, ahead of Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris. Yeah, California, he's got 8%, and he beat out Kamala Harris, who is from California. She only got 7%. It's hardly a sign of strength, but much like a nagging cold, he refuses to go away. I think it's a sign of strength to work your way up that far. That far, he started from nowhere, and now he's fourth or fifth. Like now he ranges from fourth or sixth, actually, out of 15 people. That's a huge thing. That's a, like not many people can do that. But much of his appeal. Hold on, let me see. If anybody. Oh, TJ, what's up, TJ? Yo, I'm only like 5% here. Hope you're having a great day. That's cool, TJ. I hope you're having a great day too. Much of his appeal, as profiles and campaign reporting have made clear, comes from his apparent earnestness and directness in tackling anxiety-inducing questions about the future of work and material conditions of people's lives. Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. That's a huge question of quality of life, right? If you don't have, if you're insecure about your future of work and your material conditions of your life, that's a big problem. That's a huge stress added onto people, So I can understand that. It's pretty clear. Which is why it's so curious that his policy platform doesn't come anywhere close to solving the problems he says he cares about. Yeah, it very much solves all the problems he says it would solve. It doesn't. But the problem is, this is a big problem too with people listening to Yang and not understanding what he's saying, is that he's not all of his solutions, or not all of, I should say, bad wording. Not all of his policies are about solving the problems. Some of his policies are about lightening the burden of problems till we can come up with a better solution, or a just solution in general. Because what's been happening, and we see this in politics, I'm 40 years old, I've seen it in politics for 40 years, is people keep promising solutions to problems, and then it never happens. Or they come up with a solution and it doesn't work. I mean, Reagan put trickle-down economics. That was his solution to solving the poverty in America. He said if we lighten the taxes on corporations and rich people, and they make more money than they're making now, then that money will trickle down to the poorest people, and the poorest people have more money. That hasn't been working. What ended up happening was, now corporations are saving all that money. They're not being taxed as they should be. And they're hoarding that money, as opposed to it going back into the system. They're keeping it, putting it on offshore accounts, spending it elsewhere. They're not using the money in the U.S. It's not circulating back into the U.S. So it's causing even more of a disparity. And that's what politics has been for the last 40 years, is causing more of a disparity, giving corporations more tax breaks, opening up more loopholes for them to pay zero taxes. I mean, as we know, Google, Amazon, Netflix paid almost either nothing or next to nothing in taxes last year. And meanwhile, every single citizen in America is paying their taxes at a certain rate and giving money back to the nation for it to circulate and solve little issues in America. But these corporations are just hoarding that money, so it's not trickling down. It's just staying at the top. Plus, it's hard to take a man who crowd surfs seriously. That just sounds like a personal problem. Oh wait, did I skip something? Yeah. Even Beto hasn't tried that trick yet. Yeah, but he just put out a video where he acted like a little kid getting an injection, looking all worried. Oh my god, somebody's gonna inject me with a needle, a flu shot. Trying to look relevant. So, I mean, yeah, but you could take him seriously, right? It's like, who gives a shit? He's having fun, and he's showing that he's a normal guy who likes to have fun and, can enjoy his life, which is what I want. Yet, incredibly, an increasing number of news outlets are taking him very seriously. Yeah, they can't help it now. His numbers are skyrocketing. His support is skyrocketing. They can't take him as a joke anymore. He's a legitimate candidate, and they're starting to have to see that every time they put out hit pieces on him, or pieces that make him look like a joke. People say, "Hey, I support this candidate. You're making him look shitty. You're talking shit about him. We don't like that." You know what I'm saying? And then they're losing business because of that. So they have to take him seriously now. In The Atlantic, a recent piece by Peter Bernard titled "Why Andrew Yang Matters" described him approvingly as a modern-day Ross Perot, another outsider candidate who believes that the ills facing America were purely about economics. Now, that's not true. But let's go back to modern-day Ross Perot. Kind of true. Ross Perot is probably the last person to come out of nowhere and, make it as far as he did running for president. Andrew Yang is doing basically what he did. It's been like what 30 years since Ross Perot ran, maybe more. Um, yeah, and this is the part where it's not true. Who believes in the main ills facing America or purely about economics? That's not true. Yang says that that is one ill that's facing America, and that lightening that burden will of people's personal economics will lighten their other burdens because instead of stressing out and constantly thinking about money, they'll be thinking about their other problems and the other ills that are facing America, and we can work on those now since we don't have to worry about the economic aspect anymore. This is not a position to embrace at a time when our president has embraced full on white supremacy. Yang is a true believer. Uh, yeah, but if you think white supremacy is more of an issue in America than economics, you're at a loss. Like white supremacy barely affects anyone. If I mean, I don't even believe that white supremacy has any hold in America. Um, but that I mean, look, I'm Hispanic. White supremacy doesn't affect me. You could say, hey, you live in New Jersey, which is a mixed bag of races, so maybe you're not affected by it because of that. But I've also lived in Georgia. I've also lived in Florida. I've lived in all these places. Georgia is very racially segregated, and yet white supremacy still did not affect my life in any way. So I I don't see how that's an important issue. It's not. How did Donald Trump become our president in 2016? Yang asked the crowd at a rally in New York City in May. The answer is, of course, simple math. I looked at the numbers, he said, and Donald Trump is our president for one simple reason. We automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, Iowa, all of the swing states that Donald Trump needed to win. That might be true. I mean, I don't know it for sure, but at least he's looked at the numbers. He's got something to back that up. Whereas anybody saying anything else about Donald Trump won because of white supremacy, they don't have numbers to back that up. They don't have anything to say, look, here's the numbers, this is what happened and this and that. Not to mention that people like this woman and Jezebel in general will call anyone a white supremacist for any reason, just because maybe they talk about immigration or they're concerned about culture or something. Oh, white supremacist. Like, no, that's not the case. They just like to call a bunch of people that for reasons that are not. So, I mean, if this lady wants to talk about white supremacy or white nationalists and stuff like that, voting for Yang or stuff like that, we're going to need to see some numbers. We need to see a citation on this. You can't just say these things. I mean, for all I know, you're talking about 3 people. You know what I'm saying? You're not showing any numbers. White nationalists support him. How many? You know what I'm saying? Who are you calling this? Do you consider to be a white nationalist? So if she's not showing us any proof, any type of math on this, any numbers, then it's really irrelevant to even bring it up. I got some other people in here. Sass, what's up? Meme Therapy, what's up, buddy? I haven't seen you in a while, Mark. See, Mark said, what up, Yang Gang? If Yang wins, he owes Sam Harris and Alpha at least $2,000 a month each. Loved when Kamala Harris tried constantly laughing at his ideas. Big fail, Kamala. That's actually wrong, but I'll get into that. I'll read the rest of your thing, and then before I continue the article, I'll explain to you the Kamala Harris thing. Yang is nothing we have seen before. Yeah, in some ways. In some ways, he kind of is something we've seen before, but yeah, it's very new for this era. Like for now, we haven't seen something like that. Whoa, that's cool. I'm looking at my own stream, and Google is subtitling everything I'm saying, and I'm reading like what I was saying subtitled on the screen. That's kind of cool. I didn't know that happened. Except that's spelled Mark with a K. What a bunch of douchebags. Okay, Mark said, I just listened to his podcast with Eric Weinstein this morning. I was impressed by Yang's intelligence. Very sharp guy. Yeah, he's a smart dude. I mean, he's gone through college and universities. He's a well-studied person, you know. He's got a master's degree in economics. I mean, he understands how an economy works. The Jezebel article is written by an Asian feminist. It's crap. Yeah, I know that. SJW do, yeah. SJWs don't ever do. They just do. Why, Alf? That show hasn't been on TV like 30... Oh, my name is Alf. That's why, Alf. Because that's my actual name. And I just I used the Alf character because I grew up in that time. So it's kind of kind of connected to me when I was growing up and going to school. People would always be like, "Hey, did you watch your show last night?" So it's always had somewhat of a connection to me since I carry the same name. Um, but Mark, about the Kamala Harris thing, it seems like she was laughing at him. But I made a video talking an interview where she did an interview, and they were asking her why she was laughing. She wasn't laughing at him, at least from what she says. She was laughing with him. But then at first I wasn't sure. I was like, yeah, she might just be saying that to cover her ass. But I saw pictures of the event, of the debates, from a different angle where you don't see the camera during the debates was focused on Pete Buttigieg, so you didn't get to see what you only heard Kamala Harris laughing off camera. You didn't get to see what was happening. And what was happening was Andrew Yang was doing like the Hulk Hogan ear thing, like listening to the crowd cheering, and she was looking at him laughing. They were actually laughing together. They were looking at each other laughing together. And he was doing that Hulk Hogan thing, making her laugh even more. But you couldn't see that because it was off camera. The camera was focused on Pete Buttigieg. But if you look at pictures that were taken at the event from different angles, you can see that she was laughing with him, not at him. She says in the interview that she likes him, that he has these great new ideas, and she thinks that that's awesome. She likes people having fresh ideas, and that she was basically laughing with him. So it did look bad on her, and I think that most people still think she was laughing at him. But all right, let's continue with this. Did I read this already? Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm down here. Beinart isn't the only one who finds aspects of Yang's campaign appealing either. Whether he has a real shot at the nomination or not, Yang is into something. CNN's SC Cup wrote of what she calls his marked incapacity for anger. In contrast, I can only assume to candidates like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, she added, without exactly explaining why, and the frontrunners would be smart to pay attention. Yeah, they are now, as they are starting to copy what he says. I mean, Bernie Sanders has come out saying he's sympathetic to UBI now, as I was talking about before. With Joe Biden, he's now talking about automation. Pete Buttigieg also is another one who's starting to copy things that Andrew Yang says and does, and trying to get that appeal. This is because Andrew Yang is rising faster than any of the other ones. He started at the bottom. He's made his way almost to the top. He's like from 4th to 6th now. And I think he's going to be going higher because of the amount of money he just raised, which shows that he's tripled the amount of donations in the same time as the quarter before it, which kind of shows his support has tripled maybe. So we might be seeing that in the next polls, and the next debate is in about 12 days. So I think once we see the poll numbers for after the next debate and after all these extra donations he's gotten, I think we're going to see his poll numbers go higher, and he's going to rise up the ranks even more. And he made so much money this last quarter, $10 million, that he is $6 million over what he needed. And now he has enough money to make it to every single debate until the nominations. So he doesn't have to worry. He literally does not have to worry about donations anymore. He doesn't need any more. I'm sure he'll take in more because the more he gets, the more he'll be able to use that for his campaign. And he was talking about now he wants to get ads for the Super Bowl because of how much money he's been donated. So he's going to be working on his campaign. More money would be better. He would be able to get his name out there more, get people to know him more. And but he's doing great. And I think that all that money is going to show in the polls next time. And you're going to see that he's going to be polling maybe triple what he was polling before. Wait, what was this? To pay attention? Yeah. So, not only the frontrunners smart for paying attention, they are paying attention, and they're starting to copy his things because they see that it's working for him so well. But we don't actually need Ross Perot reinvented for 2019 as a tech bro. That's not exactly what he is, and it's not about what we need. It's about what would make things better. I mean, if you want to talk about what we need, none of the candidates running have what we need. So, I mean, I'd rather go for somebody who is doing something at least a little better than somebody who's just going to keep everything in the status quo and everything's going to stay the same, So, I mean, what's better? Staying the same for the next 4 years or doing a little better for the next 4 years? If Yang cares deeply about inequality and a future on our dying planet, the best contribution he could make right now would be to drop out of the race and throw his support behind candidates who actually have substantive ideas on how to tackle ways that corporate power has ruthlessly and intentionally diminished people's lives. This is funny because what I don't know how young this girl is. I mean, she might be my age for all I know. But all we've heard from Democrats for years, decades, is that they're going to tackle the corporations. Does it happen? No, it never does. You know why? Because corporations have crazy power. So the point is, if you can't go straight at them, you work ways around that and work on ways to get around their pull and try to help in that way. Like with the VAT, right? With the VAT and UBI, you can where right now corporations, because of trickle down economics and lobbying and all the laws that have been made, they find loopholes to not pay taxes. So they just hoard all this money. The money never circulates back into the country as it's supposed to, and that's how capitalism works. And yeah, they escape all that stuff. Candidates keep running on saying they're going to cover these up. They're going to cover up these loopholes. They become president, it never happens, or it becomes worse. You know what I'm saying? Because all these people are in their fucking pockets. And instead of that, since when you try to charge them tax, they avoid them, do loopholes, put their money offshore. A VAT tax is a sales tax, so they will get charged for each transaction they make. They have to get charged for that. Just like we as people cannot avoid sales tax. When we pay our yearly taxes, we can do things to offset the costs of stuff and say, oh, well, I have 2 children, so, that's this much less you're going to tax me. I put a bunch of money into this, this charity, so that's this much less you're going to tax me. You can't do that with sales tax, right? You can't go to Burger King, go buy dinner and say, hey, I donated to this place about a few months ago, so I'm not going to pay sales tax on this burger. You can't do that, right? You have to pay the sales tax. So this is a way that companies, if they want to operate within the United States and make transactions and build factories and hire and buy trucks to deliver their stuff, or buy products to make some sort of service, produce some sort of service, they have to pay a sales tax on all of those. And that's the money that they should have been paying in their regular taxes that they avoid. But instead, we do it this way because they can't avoid that, and the money circulates back into the United States, back into our country, which is a good thing. Let me go back to the chat real quick. Oh, that's nice to know, actually. Thank you. Yeah, no problem. I think a lot of people still don't know that, and a lot of people think Kamala Harris was laughing at him, but if you look into it and do some of the research, you'll find it. It's just nobody's really come out to say, oh, this isn't what happened, except for that one interview I saw of her. Where was I? That attack ruthlessly, intentionally. Oh, wait. If Yang cares deeply about inequality, I did read that, right? Drop out of race, blah, 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 blah. Andrew, I beg of you, please stop wasting our time. No, please don't. What about people who want them? That's kind of a selfish idea, because there's lots of people who want Andrew Yang to run and want him to be president. So you're kind of selfish for saying, oh, you should drop out. And that you're being selfish to the democratic way of people wanting to support someone and vote for them. Now you're taking away the vote of people who wanted to vote for this guy. Now here's where I admit that my dislike for Andrew Yang isn't purely based on policy. No! Really? I thought that's what it was. Obviously you couldn't have any kind of personal issue with him. Here we go. Andrew Yang is embarrassing and irritating to me. Well, too bad. Like, what? A lot of people are fucking irritating to a lot of people. What are you gonna do about it? That's too bad. A fellow Chinese American, the first East Asian to make a somewhat serious run for president, is Andrew fucking Yang. Yeah, well, nobody else wanted to do it, so too bad. You know what I'm saying? At least you got somebody who wants to do it. I mean, I could say the same thing about Julian Castro, right? I could be like, damn, the first person to get this far, a Hispanic dude trying to run for president, is Julian Castro? Like, fuck. I don't like him, but you don't see me telling Julian Castro to drop out of the race. Sorry. Fall time. It brings me allergies and my lungs get very congested. So please, excuse my coughing. But that's funny, right? To say that, this is the first person to run this East Asian. Well, too bad. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I'm Hispanic. I don't like Julian Castro. And But I would never tell him to drop out. There's people who support him, and if he has people who support him, and that's what democracy is, if they want to vote for that guy, I'm not going to tell him to drop out and screw over those people who wanted to vote for him and exclude them from the democratic process. A failed lawyer turned entrepreneur who wants to make America think harder, and charm white nationalists on Reddit into kind of liking him. Again, she's going to say this, but I need to see the numbers of that. I need to see her proof that the people she's talking about are white nationalists and not just white people. On Reddit. It's like, is it because they're on Reddit that she says that? Because not I personally know people who aren't even white or white nationalists that use Reddit. So I cringe every time he whips out his standard line. The opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. I wince every time he cracks stale jokes about being Asian, like he did during the last presidential debate in Houston, lines that haven't been updated since 1990. Well, that's fine, because he's a mid 40s dad who was a teenager to adult to becoming a young adult in the 90s. It's a dad joke. Dad jokes are meant to be like that. I do dad jokes all the time. It's just kind of our thing. He's a Gen Xer. We're in our mid 40s. We're in our 40s now. We're going to make dad jokes. 40s and 50s. It's going to happen. That's why I think this chick is young. Like, yeah, I get it. You don't like dad jokes, but you know what? You're going to get older and you're going to think dad jokes are just fine. I'm Asian, so I know a lot of doctors. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Asian doctors. I mean, I was just having a conversation the other day with somebody in the Discord about how in America we have so many Indian doctors. And guess what? Indians are Asian. So, but, I mean, the hospital near me where my mom worked before she retired has a lot of Vietnamese doctors, has a lot of Filipino doctors, has a lot of Indian doctors. So, yeah, Asians tend to be doctors. It's okay. It's not that big of a problem. He quit before talking about healthcare plan. Patsy Mink, he is not. I don't know who Patsy Mink is. Full disclosure, my sister used to work with Yang at Manhattan Prep, and my other sister's husband is apparently some sort of distant cousin to him. If I were Yang, this is where I'd joke that this is proof that all Asian people are related to one another. That's a bad, boring joke. I guess so, but I mean, if you're telling it in a lighthearted manner, who cares if it's a bad joke? At least you're trying to be humorous. That's kind of the point of comedy, is to try. You can't be 100% successful in comedy no matter what. Even the best comedians, you only see their best stuff, but they go on tours telling the same jokes over and over again to make them better and better, to find the best way to present that joke and make people laugh. So Andrew Yang isn't doing that. He's not testing out jokes. He's just doing on-the-spot jokes, which is fine. At least he's trying. He's trying to appeal to people and be lighthearted, instead of being some serious politician. It's actually because all Taiwanese Americans know each other. But it's fine. You could try jokes. That's not a problem. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, But at least you're trying. I remember the first moment that I thought Andrew Yang kind of sucks. It was his CNN town hall in April, and Yang once again shared how he was perplexed by his appeal to a number of white nationalists. Again, he's probably just listening to people who are saying, hey, white nationalists support you, what you think of this. In the end, we don't have numbers on this. We don't know what white nationalists are supporting him. What is, we don't know any of that. To me, it seems arbitrary to even bring it up without knowing what the numbers are on that. Because, as I said before, it could be two white nationalists that support him. You know what I'm saying? It could be 2, it could be 20. Either way, those two numbers are incredibly small. So, I mean, I would need to see some numbers on that. It's kind of stupid to keep bringing it up. He responded that the key to ending the tribalism that's tearing this country apart would be solved by getting the economic boot off people's throats. Here's something for you to notice, and I'll read it to you now, but let me finish the sentence. In other words, by his freedom dividend. Here's something I want you guys to notice about this article. You see the parts that are in quotes? Tribalism that's tearing this country apart, and then by getting the economic boot off people's throats, right? Notice which part isn't in quotes. Would be solved. You want to know why? Because he doesn't say it would be solved by that. What he says is it would lighten the burden of it. Because People who are comfortable in their lives and aren't stressing out and worrying about their economic stability aren't as upset or angry about it. You know what I'm saying? So it would lighten the burden, and people wouldn't be going at each other's throats so much. But you know why she wrote it like this was because he doesn't actually say this. This is her adding that into his quote. If you're going to quote somebody, why would you need to cut off the quote, add your 2 cents, and then continue the quote? Why wouldn't you just finish the whole quote in one sentence and then add your 2 cents? But this is because she wanted to insert her thing of saying that Andrew Yang is saying this will solve this problem when he never said that. In other words, okay. Oh yeah, and then also notice, if you will, that the single mothers of color who disproportionately experience the economic hardships Yang describes here have decidedly not become Nazis in the years since the recession. They wouldn't become Nazis because they are mothers of color. Instead, they would become people who are mothers of color who are disenfranchised with people who are white, and would become racist towards white people. Don't you think that's what would happen, as opposed to them becoming Nazis? Why would a single black mom or a single Hispanic mom hate black people and white people and Jews and stuff? Why would that happen? Don't you think that they would start hating white people instead, which is what we're seeing? And it is provable. Like, we see it all over the place, where women of color are blaming white men for everything. So I mean, actually, so what she's actually saying is completely wrong. But it's the way she phrases it, right? Well, women of single mothers of color aren't becoming Nazis. They have economic hardships. Yeah, they're becoming disenfranchised with other people, like white people and white men, and blaming all their problems on white men, including this woman herself. Here is a man I thought who really doesn't get it. He does get it. It's you who don't get it. That's the problem. As he has continued to campaign, it's become even clearer that his supposedly post-partisan platform, one of his slogans is "not left, not right, but forward." That's a great slogan. I love that one. Is an attempt to appeal to a swath of largely young white men. I want to see proof of that. By sidestepping pesky matters like racism and sexism. To be honest with you, a lot of people I see in the Yang Gang are women. A lot of the big ones too. A lot of the ones who support him the most. There's a woman I was promoting in my last Yang video, called Pajik Keiki. She's an Asian woman. She's a huge supporter of Yang. She goes out to his rallies. She does videos. And yeah, she's that's her. There's a bunch of other women I've seen of all ages too, from my age to young women to older women. They're not all white. You know, some of them are black, Latino, Asian. So this is not true. But in the end, if you want to talk about largely young white, that's a large number of the country. So obviously that's going to be a large part per capita. That's going to be a large part. The thing is that she adds men, which is, like I said, is not true. Lots of women like him too. Probably, I would say it's probably an equal number of men to women, or at least close to. But that's funny. So, not appealing to the whole left-right dynamic is something that's appealing to young white men. In the end, that's good, because that's going to be a majority of the vote. So that's going to help him out. By sidestepping pesky matters like racism and sexism. Yeah, well, those matters should probably stay out of politics. And isn't a good thing to run on, just by its track record. Let's look back to, when was the last time identity politics passed a law in the United States? Affirmative action in the early 90s? Yeah, it's been 30 years. Nothing's changed with that. We haven't passed any identity politics laws. I think that might be an indicator that most people don't care about that and would rather have things the government should care about, like, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to social politics. Maybe that's the issue, and that's what he says. He says identity politics is a bad thing to run on. It doesn't work. And he's right. Yang decries identity politics as divisive, it is, on the one hand, and embraces stale ideas of being Asian on the other. What? What stale ideas of being Asian? What is she talking about? I wish she would explain that, because I have no idea what she's saying. Which goes a long way towards explaining his recent eyebrow-raising defense of comic Shane McGillis, who was hired and then quickly fired by Saturday Night Live after recent clips of him mocking Asian people, Yang himself included, surfaced. Yeah. Offering to sit down with Gillis, Yang then shared on Twitter, "For the record, I do not think he should lose his job. We would benefit from being more forgiving rather than punitive. That is 100% true." He then followed up that interesting take with an even more cringy analysis on what is being called cancel culture. Yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, cancel culture itself is cringy, right? And I would call entirely appropriate consequence for shitty behavior. Yeah, of course you would. But the truth is, it doesn't work that way. It's funny this woman would say this when I can pretty much guess that she has a huge problem with the prison system, that it's just, locking you up in prison and not rehabilitating anybody or giving people chances, because that's basically what's happening here. This person had a violation of, I guess he said, a racist thing, and she would rather do what she's against, which is locking people up and not helping them out in any way, just basically throwing them in a prison, and what they call the prison pipeline, or the school to prison pipeline, whatever they call it. I'm sure she's against that, but when it comes to situations like this, no, we should totally damn this guy. Who cares if he has kids or a wife or things that he has to take care of in his life? Who cares? He should be homeless, right? That's what she's saying, basically, which is stupid. No, doing stuff like that just creates more of a divide, makes people more angry, more disenfranchised, more resolute to be against a race. If they were racist in the first place, you would just add more resolution to it, instead of sitting down and talking to him and appealing to him and saying, like, look, I'm a human too, I'm just like you, and then maybe they would change their minds. That's what you want to do. Instead, people like her don't realize that the way they act, it creates more of what they don't want. Just like, they say that with kids. I do agree that sometimes you need to spank kids, but in some cases, it's better to talk to your child and have them understand what's wrong with their actions, as opposed to just smacking them up and throwing them in a room and go, "Oh, you're grounded." They don't. All they know is they face a repercussion, but they don't know why they're facing the repercussion. You need to teach them why it's happening. You know what I'm saying? Why they shouldn't do or think the way they should and stuff like that. Right, let me go back to the chat. RB, what's up, man? This excerpt was written from Miss Swan from Mad TV. Yeah. I forgot to ask, any preference on how you want the new pinup look, or should I make an illustration on Beetlejuice as well? Just do whatever you want, man. I like your work. I don't feel the need to tell you what to make, because I think that you do a good job, and I'd rather have your own artistic expression. What's up, Tiffany? Tiffany in the house. So she says, it's also a case that anti-Asian racism is particularly virulent because it's somehow considered more acceptable. If Shane had used the N-word, the treatment would be immediate and clear. I think that's kind of true. I'm not against her saying that. Is that what she's saying, or is that what he's saying? I don't know. But it's probably a thing that Asian people are less offended by these things. I know a lot of Asian people, and they don't really care. You know why? Because they do well in life. And like I was saying before, if you're more economically stable than you feel, and you feel you're economically stable, you don't worry about things like that. Social things don't really bother you as much. For instance, myself, I mean, when I was younger and I was poor, things used to bother me. People would call me spick and stuff like that, and that would bother me. Nowadays, maybe it's more because I'm grown up, but I'm also comfortable in my life and do decent. And I don't feel like I'm on the edge of falling apart all the time. But I don't really care if people call me spick. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what does that do? That doesn't do anything. It doesn't change my life in any way. Whatever. That make you feel better? Okay. To Yang, racial slurs are merely offensive. Now, that's not what he said, but, that's how you want to take it. He entirely misses the point about the power of racial slurs, which, as Jamel Bouie put it, are verbal affirmations of the idea that you, as a member of a targeted community, are not quite human and a second-class citizen who does not deserve respect or dignity. So wouldn't the solution to that be to talk to these people who say racial slurs and help them understand that you are human, that you are not a second-class citizen, that you do deserve respect and dignity if you've earned it. But in the end, isn't that a better solution than just getting them fired, pissing them off, and making them think of you even less? It's so weird. And them going around and telling people what you did to them, and making that, and them maybe having more power to convince other people that you're not human. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're doing. You don't even realize it. You're creating martyrs. Yang's muddled posture here is telling, and the line can be drawn from his incoherent stance on Gillis. How is it incoherent? She just described it and then says it's incoherent. If it was incoherent, you wouldn't understand it, right? You'd be like, I don't even understand what he's saying here. It doesn't make any sense, you know? But it does make sense. And you explained it, and explained it kind of decently. You just don't agree with it. So it's not incoherent. You're just making up a word. You're just throwing that word in there to make it seem worse than it is. Stance on Gillis and his position against what he calls identity politics to his policy proposal. It's true, identity politics does not work in politics. We've seen it over and over and over again. And like I stated earlier, the last time identity politics even got a bill passed was affirmative action 30 years ago. Obviously, it's not working. People don't want it. People don't vote for it. Get over it. Find a way around that. You know what I'm saying? That's what Yang's doing. He's finding a way around things that don't work. To his policy proposals, which reportedly aim to tackle pressing issues of inequality, but fail to address one of the fundamental aspects of the way our economy works, which is to say, how radicalized inequality has not only accrued over time, but is central to capitalism. No, it's not. I mean, the capitalism we live in now is kind of wrong, like I said earlier, because of trickle-down economics. Capitalism is supposed to circulate money. Your money's supposed to always circulate. So if people at the top are making money, that trickles down, and the whole country makes more money. But that's not what's happening because the people at the top are hoarding their money. They're not trickling it down. In words Yang might understand, it's built into the system and not a bug. But none of that is true. There's no racialized inequality. All people have the same opportunities. They just have to work hard for it. Maybe there's some people who work less hard because their parents worked hard. Their parents worked hard and made it easier for their children to do things, which is kind of like the American dream, right? You always hear all parents say, I want my child to have a better life than I did. That's kind of the American dream. So yeah, this is dumb. This is a more just stuff people want to say. They don't understand numbers and how to read them. Racialized inequality. You don't understand capitalism. That's not how capitalism works. Let me check the chat again real quick. Who cares how other races react? I care about people react. The races are in that. I mean, I care about how other races react because I care about how Americans react. So, and Americans is built from different races. So, none of which is to say that he doesn't also experience racism on the campaign trail. You'd have to prove that. I mean, how do you know he's experiencing racism? Yang has been treated badly by pundits and cable news networks. I think that's more of not race, but I think that's more of a thing of them thinking of him kind of as a joke because he's a wild card. He came out of nowhere, no experience, and has all these new ideas that other people aren't running on. He doesn't care to run on the same things. So I think they started taking him as a joke. They're like, oh, this non-politician guy just comes out of nowhere and spouts these ideas that nobody else is spouting. What a joke. Nobody's going to vote for this guy, right? Meanwhile, they've all been proven wrong so far. Who can't even print his name correctly for crayons. Yeah, because they take him as a joke. And cutting out of county roundups, despite his polling narrowly above people like Cory Booker. Correct. These insults could either be read as people dismissing him. That would probably be... Occam's razor would say that that's probably the most likely way to read it. But instead, she is a person who always has race on her mind, so she's going to see it that way. And his campaign as that of a wacky outsider and upsetting reminders that Asians in politics, whether as voters or as politicians, are often an afterthought. What? No, that's not true. Or likely some combination of the two. No, likely they think he's a joke, not because of his race, but because of his policies and his history. It has the likely thing is that it doesn't have to do with his race. But you do you, girl. Still, you can see his lack of perspective on racial justice in his much discussed UBI proposal. Racial justice. But why racial justice? Why not just uplift everyone? If you uplift everyone, then you're uplifting all races. It's like these people just want to focus on one thing. They don't like the idea of the entire country doing better. If the entire country does better, minorities do better, right? Along with everyone else, everyone does better. That's kind of the point. It makes it fair. It's more open to approval. More people would say, if you got two politicians who just says, "Yeah, I'm gonna make life better for black people, yay!" and another politician says, "I'm gonna make life better for everyone in America, yay!" Why wouldn't you vote for the guy who makes life better for everyone in America? He's doing the same as the other person plus more. you know, duh. It's really weird that they do that. They minimize things like that. Like, instead of just helping everyone, they'd rather just help one group for some reason. I personally find most UBI evangelists extremely suspect, given the noted humanitarians. I guess humanitarian is an issue. Caring about humans is an issue. Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, and Mark Zuckerberg are among them. Yeah, but there's also a bunch of other people who aren't tech guys or who aren't humanitarians. She's just nitpicking the ones who are for it that she doesn't like, so that she can make a point that doesn't work because she's nitpicking. Who's dumb enough to trust our techno dystopian would-be autocrats these days? This is like that AJ Plus video that I responded to the other day, where the guy was like, "Oh, we should be skeptical of UBI because people on the right also support it." Well, it's like, yeah, but it's a way small number of people on the right, and just because people on the right support it, why? How does what does that mean? You're completely discluding like the 90% people on the left who like it. So weird. While Yang's is not the only UBI proposal out there, and there are champions of different versions of UBI from the left, there are major problems with his. Primary among them, as Yang himself has noted about his UBI plan, one would have to make the choice between accepting the freedom dividend or collecting one's existing benefits like SNAP and disability payments. This is half wrong. Yeah, you would have to choose against SNAP, but he has said that you can keep your disability payments. Your disability payments is because you have a disability. The UBI is for something else. The SNAP, yeah, because you want to lower the welfare programs. The less social welfare programs you have, the less people are going to get taxed. The less we have to spend the nation's money on these programs. And UBI has that covered. This isn't. He's not calling for UBI as a way to add to the welfare system. It's a replacement for it, as well as other things. Why would you do both? That doesn't make sense. Instead of becoming a piece of a more robust safety net, Yang's UBA proposal would help destroy it. No, it would replace it. It's funny how she's like, you either make it better or you're destroying it. There's a middle place where maybe you're not making it better, but you're replacing it with what is a better solution. SNAP, you can only spend that money. You get select money that you can spend on certain things. The UBI you can spend on everything. And again, it's a choice. You don't have to go with the UBI. If you get more money from SNAP and you decide that that's a better way for you to live, keep that. He's not taking it from you. But the thing is, a lot of people are going to find UBI to be more appealing because you can spend that $1,000 a month anywhere you want. You're not relegated to only have to spend it on food or clothes or housing tokens or tickets or whatever they call it. So it's going to be more beneficial for certain people to do that. Say you got to buy clothes for your kid for school. His clothes got fucked up. You need new clothes for your kid. Sometimes that happens. Kids play. They rip their clothes. Now he has no good clothes to go to school. You're poor as fuck. The welfare you get monthly is for food and rent, and now you don't have any extra money to buy this person clothes. Well, $1,000 helps you learn to budget that money a little better. So you can say, well, I'll take this portion for food, I'll take this portion for paying the rent, and I've got a little bit left over that I can choose how to spend that, which would be clothes for the kid who needs it. There is, too, the separate question of whether a solidly upper middle class family would need the infusion of $1,000 per month. It's not about needing it. This is another perspective problem people have. They only view this under one perspective. Oh, UBI is for poor people, to help poor people. No, you're totally missing everything else that's about UBI. You want upper middle class families to get an extra $1,000 a month, because guess what? That means they're going to decide they can spend an extra $1,000 a month. You know what I'm saying? That's more money going into a community That community is going to spend that money on the next community. It's going to keep growing. Your entire county is going to make more money. Your state is going to get more state tax so they can build on infrastructure, schools, police, firemen, all that kind of stuff is going to go up because people are spending that extra $1,000. You have an extra 1,000 to spend a month. That only makes sense. It's weird to say, oh, well, the question is whether they need it. It's not about who needs it. It's about the economy. It's about helping money circulate. Who needs it is irrelevant. I mean, it's a byproduct. Poor people, and giving them a safety net, or giving middle class people a safety net, is a byproduct of doing this UBI to help the economy. So it's weird when people tend to single track focus on one aspect of it, and then every other benefit of UBI just gets completely thrown out the window just because people are like, people are lazy, or well, why don't they just get another job? Well, what about people who have 3 jobs already? How are they going to get another job? It doesn't even make sense. Shitty arguments. And then on top of that, like I said, UBI isn't just a single track solution for one thing. It solves multiple. It doesn't solve, but it lightens the burden on multiple problems. You can't just say you don't like it because of this one problem. What about all the other things that it benefits? What about that? Do you not have a balance where it's like, well, I don't like UBI because it has 1 or 2 problems, even though there's 10 to 12 things that it helps. There's a balance there. Just like with Andrew Yang, a lot of people have told me and asked me, are there policies Yang has that you don't like? Yeah, there's a couple. There's a few policies I don't like of his. But guess what? The policies he does have that I like completely outweigh the ones I don't like. So obviously I'm going to vote for him because the ones I don't like, are being outweighed by a way higher benefit. It's weird when people will see a politician and say, I don't like him because of this one policy. And then it's like, well, what about the 20 other policies he has that are great? That you do agree with, and you would like that if any other politician said it. But because they have that one policy you don't like, that's it. It's weird. I mean, it depends on the policy, of course. It could be such a bad policy that it disregards all the other ones and off balances the benefit to non-benefit. But in the end, most of the times you're going to find that the benefit of policies are going to outweigh what's bad. So what's Yang's motivation for pushing UBI? Well, you'd have to ask him. He has tons of motivations for it. It helps in so many different ways. If you listen to him in interviews, he doesn't always give the same reasoning. He doesn't always give the same things that it's going to solve, because it depends on who's asking him the question, depends on what context they're talking about. So what's Yang's motivation for pushing UBI? His vision, to put it mildly, is bleak. Yeah, well, the future is bleak. All you need is self-driving cars to destabilize society, Yang told the New York Times in an early interview. Yeah, that's true. Describing it as an event that would create riots in the streets. So, yeah, self-driving cars is huge. That's taxi services gone, Lyft and Uber gone. They're not hiring people anymore. UPS, FedEx, U.S. Postal Service gone, not hiring people anymore. All their trucks are automated, right? And then any other logistics company, trucks delivering, products across the nation, all that stuff, all those jobs gone. And that's going on right now. It's happening. It's weird that people want to disregard that when we see it every day. When UPS, it just came out on the news like a month ago, UPS is funding a self-driving truck company in order to work on the technology and build them a fleet of self-driving trucks so they can deliver packages without a driver. How many people are going to lose jobs right there? How many people work making deliveries for UPS? Fucking hundreds of thousands. It's a nationwide company. Yang told New York Times in an early interview, describing it as an event that would create riots in the streets. We have 5 to 10 years before truckers lose their jobs, he warned, and all hell breaks loose. To audiences of voters, he describes his UBI plan as a little more cheerily as trickle-up economics. Yeah. The point of him calling it trickle-up economics is because it's a workaround to trickle-down economics, which has been, which I've explained earlier in this stream, that, yeah, companies are hoarding money. This is a way of getting that money back to the American public, as should be done through our regular taxes, That's why we have taxes, is to circulate the money and to, help infrastructure and schools and give people, and spread it around. And yeah, that helps the economy. Stagnating money is bad for capitalism. It does not work. Stagnating money makes the economy worse. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, truckers make on average about 44,000 per year, far more than Yang's freedom dividend would provide, which is just a touch under the federal poverty line. Right, but if they lose all that job and don't get the freedom dividend, then they're making zero per year. I think it's better for them to be making 12,000 per year, taking that loss but still making 12,000 per year than it is for them making zero per year. This is how dumb of an argument this is. That she thinks it's better for these people to make zero per year than 44,000 per year. And if she doesn't, and she thinks there's a better way, well, what's that better way? State it and show us a candidate that's running on that, because there are none. As for automation's potential to destroy millions of people's jobs, some experts are increasingly skeptical of that idea, and new research has come out that has dialed down previous estimates of its impact. Now, you could dial down the estimates of its impact, but dial it down by how much? Is it still going to be a problem for some people? I mean, it's weird to just say it dials it down. That means that the impact is going to happen. It's just not as bad. But it's still bad, though, right? As Eric Levitt summed it up in New York Magazine, the biggest flaw in Yang's grand theory is that its foundational premise is almost certainly wrong. Well, I'd have to see the work on that. She didn't. I don't know if she. Let me see what happens if you click this. No. I can't even open it. But yeah, that doesn't even make sense. Well, not that it doesn't make sense, but she's not showing what it is. There's no citation. I don't know what she's talking about. Back to this. Back to the chat. Let's see. This all sounds like SJW Mumbo Jumbo with no real meaning. Yeah, basically. This was meant for when she said black community would react different to Shane Gillis. Who cares how they react compared to Yang? Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm not understanding UBI. If person pays taxes, then gets UBI, aren't they paying for their own UBI? A percentage of it, yeah. But it's just the same as you paying sales tax, right? Like schools aren't free, right? Public schools. So if you send your kid to a public school, your state tax that you're paying goes into that, right? So you're paying a percentage of that school. It works the same. Some people will break even with the UBI. Some people won't. But the vast majority of people will not be spending enough to counterbalance the UBI they're getting. But again, this is what I was talking about before about perspective. The UBI isn't about. Well, I mean, it's a byproduct of that is for people to get more money. But the point is to circulate money, to have people spend money within their communities, and to boost the economy, because money is circulating more. More things are being bought. There's every community has $1,000 more per person to spend within their community. No, you get way more than you pay in taxes. Yeah. So then, what's the incentive to work? What's the incentive to work now? There is no incentive to work now. People who are lazy now and don't work now are going to continue to be lazy. It doesn't matter what you do, right? They're still lazy now. Our workforce is 63%, down from 67% 20 years ago. It looks like our incentives are going down. So maybe the incentives to work don't matter anymore. I think we've lost that. And people are going to work if they want to work. If they don't, they don't. And they have to live with the bare minimum, which is what they're doing now. But at least the people who are lazy and don't have an incentive to work and are living off the bare minimum will have an extra $1,000 to spend, which will benefit their community more than what they're doing now, because they're living off the bare minimum. They probably spend less than $1,000 a month. So now they're going to be spending what they earn plus the $1,000 a month, which is more beneficial to their community around them. So they're actually supporting their community more than what they were before a UBI, right? Because 12K isn't enough to live. That's true too, or thrive. Yeah. If you're single, yes, it is. Yeah, so be single. I mean, if you want to live single on 12K a year, that's your choice. But I mean, you're not going to do much. It's going to be hard for you to find a mate. It's going to be hard for you to advance or do anything of significance in your life. But if that's what makes you happy, go for it. I don't have a problem with that. But at least this way, you'll be contributing more. because you're spending more money within your community. Like I said, money is circulating more because you have this extra $1,000 to spend, as opposed to you working a part-time bare minimum and just spending and living check to check, which might be less than 1,000 a month, and that's not contributing much. You'll be contributing more. Do you? Yes, me. Well, there's been trials of UBI and work doesn't go down. Yeah, and every experiment for UBI, there hasn't been one shown that people work less. It's either broke even or people took more risks on jobs and actually excelled more, but not a huge number. I think there's only been like one or two experiments where there was a good rise in work. Most of them is either it breaks even, which is fine because things remain the same, except for people have more money to spend and money circulates more, or people or work rises a bit, as it is now. Like I said, our workforce is pretty short. It's pretty small. If people had an extra $1,000 a month, who knows? Maybe a small percentage of the people who aren't working now will decide to start a business or become an entrepreneur. Maybe fall into a hobby they love and create things to sell. And you never know. I think that's kind of what happened in some of these UBI programs where people tended to take more risks, like they left their jobs and started becoming entrepreneurs and trying to sell products that they enjoy making, and it made their lives better. So why not? I get just fine on 1K a month earnings. I couldn't, but it depends on where you live. But either way, if like I said, if you're fine with just 1K a month, go for it. No problem there. 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. That is true. That is a true statistic. Sorry, I'm behind, so you guys might be responding to what I'm saying, but I'll catch up. 1K a month extra would be tremendously and help grow the economy. That very true, Sass. Where is the 1K a month coming from? You'd have to look that up, Shade. I mean, people can't research things for you. If you want to argue against a policy or something, you want to build an argument against something, you should know what you're arguing against so that you can defeat it. But yeah, where's the 1K a month coming from? It's very much detailed on his website. There's tons of videos out there detailing where the money comes from. You can look those things up. Mental health, stress, all gets better as well. Yeah, there was less in almost all UBI experiments. There's been less hospitalization. Like people go to the hospital less. Drinking and drugs have actually gone down most of the time. There's usually an uprise at first, like a little spike, and then it drops after that because a lot of people drink and do drugs to escape the stresses of society. They feel, they worked all day. They're all stressed out. They feel like shit, and they want to fucking, do some drugs, feel better about themselves, and escape their problems. But, when you're doing better, you tend to do that less. I mean, that when I was younger and I didn't make much money, I used to drink like crazy. My 20s was all drinking. When I hit my 30s and started stabilizing my life and doing better, now I'm at the point I'm 40 and I barely drink. I barely drink at all. I never really feel the need to drink, I don't even smoke as much weed as I used to, It's easy to gain. Let me see. Mental health stress. Amazon and other companies that are paying. Yeah, Sassy, you're getting it. You got the point. Because it's easy to game the U.S. tax system. It is. So that's why a sales tax, which is the VAT tax, is better than taxing a company every yearly, because they can avoid those, but you can't avoid a sales tax. Okay, I'm sold. Send me my check. Gotta get Yang in office first. I can get a benefit. I think he meant benefit in stress, mental health, etc. But if all gets better, I'm skeptic about it. Yeah, you can be skeptic about it, but most UBI experiments have shown a net benefit. Not in every area, of course. The experiments are in different countries, different cultures, different levels of prosperity of people. So you're going to see different outcomes. But most of them show a benefit to most things. Like I said, like hospitalization, drug use. Jobs have either shown a benefit or broke even, which, a lot of people say, people aren't going to work if they get this much. But no UBI experiment has shown that. It's kind of shown either people still do the same, which I think, personally, I feel like people work anyway. I think people get bored when they're not working. But you have different types of people, and there's people who are lazy, who don't want to work. Those people are not going to work no matter what. You know what I'm saying? You can't do anything to make them work. There's no way it's going to happen. Some of these people end up going homeless instead of working. You know what I'm saying? It's not them going homeless isn't an incentive, isn't the right sentence. What if I don't have kids? I don't know what that's an argument to. This just sounds like communism plus. It's not. It works within capitalism. Communism would be if Yang proposed the government taking over Netflix, Amazon, and Google, and then taking all of their assets, every single bit of it, all of their assets, everything they produced, and spreading it across the country to each person equally. That's a totally different thing. Their UBI in no way seizes the means of production, which is what communism is. Communism is a seizure of the means of production. Not saying that it won't help at all, but I don't think there is a universal system or possibility that makes everything good. No, there isn't a thing that makes everything good. I don't even think that anybody claims UBI would make everything good. What they say is UBI will lighten the load of things, lighten stress and make things a little better, which in turn would make us more clear-headed and more able to focus on other problems as opposed to focusing, as you can see with the Democrats who tend to focus on this a lot, is welfare systems and helping people at the bottom. That's what they focus on the most, and they neglect all these other problems. This way, that problem is not fully solved, but it's lightened, and we don't have to worry about as much, and we can see that other problems might be more dire at the moment, and we should work on those, right? Tosa Network, wouldn't giving everyone $1,000 lose the value of $1,000? Just like if you gave everyone a diamond, it loses value? No, it breaks even. Because instead of starting at 0, you start at 1,000. What's the difference? It's not new money. They're not printing new money to give to people. It's circulated money. Those $1,000 are going to stay worth the same amount because you lower the value of money by making more money. But if you make more money, right? Because say there was only $1,000 in the country, right? And then you decided to print another $1,000. Well, now those $1,000 are worth $500 instead because you still only have $1,000 worth, right? But you're not printing more money in this, so the $1,000 still equal $1,000. It doesn't change its value. The problem would be in UBI is if we did print money for UBI, that would be a problem. That would not be feasible because we would cause inflation and ruin the value of each dollar. But we're not. But that's not what's being proposed. It's capitalism where income starts at 1,000. Yeah, it's capitalism at a different base. Instead of 0, it starts at 1,000, which is needed as more and more of the workforce gets displaced due to automation. Very true. I'm guessing the 1K a month is coming through taxes. Some of it is, not all of it. Some of it's coming from consolidating social programs, like you can't get welfare and UBI. So a lot of people are going to leave welfare to get the UBI. So that saves us tons of money. We spend something like 200 to 300 billion a year on welfare. This isn't talking about collecting taxes to put into welfare. This is just the country itself spending its own funds, 200 to 3 billion of its own funds to support the welfare system, to hire people, to make these buildings. You have to have each person on welfare has like an agent that they talk to and have to spend time and work talking to these people to try to calculate how much they need. Welfare also is adjustable, so like the more kids they have, the more money they're going to give them and stuff like that. All of that is going to get consolidated. We don't need those as much. We don't need SNAP. We don't need all these other social programs if you're getting UBI. So those are all going to close down. That money is going to circulate back into the government funds in order to go back into VAT. Then you have the VAT system, which is excluded from necessities, but will be a huge part of it because, now these corporations can't avoid paying taxes. They have to pay the sales tax. That's going to make about, I think the math shows that will give us at least $800 billion if the projections go the same. That's a huge part of it. 60% of spending is on welfare. Yeah, exactly. Look at that. So imagine cutting that down to like 20% or 15%. All that extra money is going to go into the UBI, and instead of just going to select people, is going to go to everyone, in order to start a base for us to be able to circulate money better, as opposed to people hoarding money. Regardless, why not try it out? Yeah, it's a good point. It can't become worse than the current state. Yeah, that's kind of the point, is that all the other politicians are kind of serving a status quo. They're kind of wanting to keep everything the same, where this is kind of at least somewhat beneficial. At least it's going to help a little bit. You know, it's better to start small than not start at all. Um, they already tried it in Alaska and a few places. Yeah, it works well in Alaska, but there are issues of the way they did it because they focused. The money that comes from Alaska comes from oil, and they focused on that. And 40 years later, the oil's kind of drying up. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of fucking their UBI system. They didn't calculate it correctly. It's just they did it with not too good of a system. Um, I think I know what you mean, and if it works out, it should be at least given a try. It won't work. You can still change it. Yeah, I mean, we can always do it in a trial period instead of like putting it through right away. Maybe we could do it for Yang's candidacy if he became president. Do like a 4-year UBI experiment, like many countries have done. Many countries have done the experiment. Some of them have. Some of them continue it. Some of them haven't. I think Brazil's still doing it in some places. They never did a full national UBI. They just did it in certain areas to test it, and some of them have continued doing it, and they haven't stopped yet. So we don't know the full benefits or anything. No one wants to live in Alaska. Yeah, that was kind of another thing why they did that too, as an incentive to live there. But theirs was 2,000, so everybody in Alaska gets about 2,000 a month from the oil companies. Um, all right, let's go back to this article. I answered your questions for a while. Read a little more. I'm of the personal belief that the only people we should take seriously during the Democratic candidate primary are those with a clear-eyed understanding of how power operates, and not only a deep desire to shift more of that power towards the 99%, which is exactly what Yang is doing, but actually ideas to do so. Andrew Yang is not that person. Andrew Yang's the only one doing that. That's so weird that she says that, because he's the only one ending at least trying to stop trickle down economics that doesn't work and give more purchasing power to people. Where also the other benefit is giving more power to people to leave their jobs and look for a better job. If they're getting taken advantage of their job and not getting paid what they deserve, or being treated like shit, or have dangerous work conditions, they can easily say, hey, I'm getting an extra $1,000 a month. Why don't I quit this job and look for another one? I'm not stuck at this job. A lot of people are stuck in their jobs because they work paycheck to paycheck and can't afford to miss one paycheck in order to look for a job, you know? Or they're stuck there because of insurance, you know, medical insurance and stuff. This would definitely help and lighten the load and give them more power. Consider how he characterizes our corporate overlords' ruthless drive for ever-increasing profits in 2018 book, The War on Normal People. Right now, some of the smartest people in the country are trying to figure out how to replace you with an overseas worker, a cheaper version of you, or increasingly a widget, software program, or robot. All true. Yang wrote, he continued, there's no malice in it. The market rewards business leaders for making things more efficient. 100% true as well. Efficiency doesn't love normal people. It loves getting things done in the most cost-effective way possible. All of this is true. She's upset about the truth. Like, I don't get it. He's just being real. He's not characterizing them any differently. He's being real. These people, he even says, they don't care about you. The reason they don't care about you is because the goal of a business is profit. So it's profit over people. I don't think he said anything wrong there. That's so weird that she sees that as being a problem. Like, what? He just said the truth. Here, we're reminded that Yang's ethos is that the Silicon Valley, where he was incubated, both chirpy technocrat, freedom dividend to unlock our potential, and doomsday prophet, robot apocalypse, there's nothing really in his writing or platform to suggest that Yang understands the real forces driving this ever-increasing push towards productivity and efficiency, nor does he point the blame squarely at the actual people who are making those decisions. I think he kind of did. He pointed the blame exactly where it is. The system that says corporations are profit over people. That's what he said is the issue. But he says that there's no real malice there. It's a more thing of indifference. It's not malice. I don't think she misunderstands that in thinking that if he says there's no malice, that then they're doing it for good. It's not either. It's in the middle. They're indifferent. They only care about making profit, so they're indifferent to people. But anyways, I think he placed the blame squarely where it should be. As one critic of his UBI proposal put it recently in Long Reads, By talking about disappearing jobs rather than stagnant wages and degrading working conditions, Yang plays into the grandiose self image of Silicon Valley. This is not true. He actually does talk about stagnant wages and degrading working conditions, and I'll get to that right after I finish this paragraph. Technology only solves problems, according to his view. Not true. It doesn't cause them. That's not true either. The whole reason why he wants to give UBI is because technology is causing a problem. What? All right, well, let me finish this paragraph. What would Yang's vision of UBI, which one writer for the New Inquiry described as a subtle kind of doomsday prep for the tech billionaire, really fundamentally change? The smartest people in the country would get to continue partying with their private islands stocked with lavish bankers, while the rest of us normal people get our UBI crumbs. Now, there is so much wrong with this paragraph. Let's go through it. Squarely, I did that already. Yeah, he does talk about stagnant wages. He does talk about degrading work conditions. This is where he says UBI will give you power against your employers to say, hey, you're not paying me enough. I'm going to leave. Same thing with degrading work conditions. I just talked about that. It's funny, she brings it up in the next paragraph. And it's wrong. He does talk about that. I've heard him talk about it many times. Technology only solves problems, according to it doesn't cause them. Bullshit. His big thing is automation is causing problems, and the UBI is there to lighten those problems and not make it as harsh. Duh. So like almost everything in this paragraph is wrong, is incorrect. What was the UBI vision? Oh yeah, and then this part is the worst perpetrator of not having good perspective. The smartest people in the country would get to continue playing on their private islands stacked with lavish bunkers, while the rest of us normal people get our UBI crumbs. So, without UBI, what happens? Pretty much everything in the sentence except for the end. If we don't get UBI, well, the smartest people in the country would still continue partying on their private islands stocked with lavish bunkers, except that the rest of us normal people won't get shit out of it. You know what I'm saying? Won't benefit at all, and it will continue to be on a cycle of huge disparage of wealth that continues to get widen and widen and widen because trickle-down economics doesn't work. And these people are hoarding their money and going to private islands and stacking lavish bunkers offshore so they don't pay taxes on any of that shit and keep all their money, as opposed to giving it back to the country that made them rich, which they're supposed to, like all of us do when we pay taxes, right? Funny enough that these people think that this is a good argument. So this helps us just a little bit, so we shouldn't do it. Let's keep it as bad as it is. Weird. Who else? Let's see, more chats in here. You know what I mean? If it works out, it should be at least... Okay, no one wants to live in... Alf Benny, why is Yang going to do UBI to the 1% like Bill Gates? They don't need it. It's a thing of fairness. People... In general, people don't like welfare, right? And it's because it's only going to certain people. It's not fair. It's not even. It's not for everyone. We're just... And you want to talk about incentives not to work. If these... We're basically paying the people who already are lazy and don't want to work. We're just paying them. And that's it. If we give it to everyone, it makes it fair. It lightens the idea that, oh, welfare is only for these people. Let's get rid of welfare then. And just give everyone the same amount. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Plus, like I said, even with the rich people, an extra $1,000 in their pocket is still an extra amount of money that they would spend on something, and the VAT tax would go back into that, and blee, 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 blee. It just all circulates. Easier to administer, plus Bill Gates is... Yeah, easier to administer is a big part of it. Plus, Bill Gates is going to pay millions, so getting $12K a year is nothing if they decided to opt in, yeah. And, I mean... You don't have to take the UBI. You could do whatever you want with it. I mean, if they wanted to just say, hey, I want my UBI to automatically go to this charity, it'll just automatically do that. And it will look good on them, and they'd get a tax break, so why not? That's probably what a lot of rich people will do, was just automatically put their UBI to go to some sort of charity or program or something like that, which they probably won't. You had a good day? Yeah, it wasn't bad. I don't know. Alaska has its nice sides. The nature, peacefulness. Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's go back to this. Yang, of course, has other ideas. I mean, after that last paragraph that was so bad, it's like, I don't even know if reading the rest of this is worth it. Yang, of course, has other problems. His policy page lists dozens of them. A weird grab bag of sensible, making Election Day a federal holiday. That's a good idea. Making Election Day a federal holiday is a great idea. That means more people will be available to vote. I know some places will, a lot of jobs will give you the option to go out and vote and, not go to work or leave work early. Some don't though. And you might not have the chance to work. Some people don't make enough money and can't afford to miss even an hour of work. They have to work their full time and they don't have the time to go. I think this will make it a lot easier for people to go out and vote. I don't see a problem with that. And the inducing the American Mall Act. That's because she doesn't understand what's going on. But ghost towns are starting to pop up across America because malls are not doing as good as they used to. And we kind of built way too many malls. And some towns, especially small towns, a lot of their work comes from these malls, and these malls are starting to lose business because of like Amazon, people shopping online, automation and shit like that, which is understandable. I'm not blaming those things for that happening, but the issue is that American malls are starting to crumble. Lots of them are closing down, creating ghost towns where now people don't have work, people don't have a place to shop. So this is kind of an act he's making to try to help that. It's not really inducing it. It makes a lot of sense. We don't want ghost towns, right? We don't want what happened to Detroit when GM left. You know what I'm saying? And look at Detroit now. Look what happened to Detroit. Detroit used to be a huge flourishing city where people made tons of money. It was doing great. Now it's crap. Now it's fallen apart because GM left. All their work, all the places where these people worked and spent 40, 50 years working at was gone. And these people are low wage workers who had a steady job and now cannot now have trouble converting to a different kind of job. They're 50 years old, 60 years old. You know what I'm saying? It's hard for them to learn new things and move on to a different kind of job, especially when there aren't even many jobs around in the first place because they all dried up and left. I don't care if rich people have money. I just want to be left alone. Well, $1,000 a month will help you be left alone. That's less that you have to go out and earn money, maybe. I don't know if that's a way you want to do it. I mean, that's not really my thing. My thing is more about quality of life and economics. I want to, like, politicians, unless my main priority for a politician is whether they're going to raise quality of life and whether they're going to raise the economic standing of America, raise our GDP, make our economy better. That's what I care about, and he's the only one that's really doing those things. Still, let's take a look at another issue he's spoken about at length: climate change. And here again, I plead, Andrew Yang, please drop out. No, he has one of the best climate change viewpoints, at least according to science. This is going to be a tough truth. Well, this is what Yang said. This is going to be a tough truth, but we are too late. We are 10 years too late. Yang said of efforts to curb climate change at a debate at the end of July. He then offered his freedom dividend as a solution, positioning a massive complex issue that requires, at minimum, a massive government intervention into one best tackled by individual choices. But you know what the problem is with this? That's not happening. This is the problem with people who make arguments like this. These things aren't happening. There's no politician out there who's trying to make a massive complex change in government. Nobody's trying to do that. Even the Democrats that come into office, they make little tiny changes. They don't try to solve the entire problem. Why? Because they're in the pockets of lobbyists. These guys, these corporations who cause all this pollution and all this climate change problems, they're saving money because of that. So for you to come in and say, we're going to change the way you do everything, and you can't do nothing about it, and you're just not going to make that money, they're not going to like that. And they're going to try to do whatever they can to stifle that. So I think what Yang wants to do is put the carbon tax on. So the more you pollute, the more more you have to pay in tax. That's actually a good idea, because that might incentivize companies to look for cleaner solutions so they don't have to pay so much tax. Find ways that they can run their business without putting much carbon out. It's a good incentive for that, as opposed to just saying you can't do it and them thinking, well, we can't change overnight, so we're out and we're going to go move to China where we can pump out as much pollution as we want. Instead of that, well, we can charge them a bit for for all the pollution they pump into the air, and little by little they're going to say, hey, maybe if we research stuff and try to find a cleaner solution to our production, we can, we end up not having to pay so much in taxes. That's the problem, is these people want day-to-day change. They want things to change from one day to the next, but things don't work like that. If you notice in America, that's never really happened. We've never really changed something from one day to the next. It's always been a long, decades long debate and going back and forth, and it's never changed. So why I like Yang is he's got a little sidestep and be like, well, if we can't change this and it's going to take 10 years for us to change this, how about we implement this little thing and say, hey, look, this kind of, lightens the load of a lot of this stuff. And, then from there, that things are a little lighter, we can start working on the real problems and start working our way towards changing those problems. And maybe they'll happen a little faster because we're already a step there, Best tackled by individual choices. We need to start moving our people to higher ground, and the best way to do that is to put economic resources into your hands so you can protect yourself and your family. This is probably like a long-term thing, but it's true. Say we find out in 10 years, some of New York City and some of LA is going to be gone underwater. We can't just leave those people there. You know what I'm saying? We got to do something about it. And giving people a UBI gives them more economic freedom to move around and say, hey, this area is going to be gone in a couple of years. Maybe we should just pack up and go now. Middle America is kind of empty. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's packed into the coasts. So it's not too difficult to think that just a couple of bucks in someone's hands would make it easier for them to move to somewhere where, there's not as many people. I don't care if everyone is hiring in my Midwest town. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. People who live on the coasts, a lot of them who don't make a lot of money are kind of stuck there. They live check to check. They don't have enough money to pay to travel to the Midwest to pay first month security, first month's rent or whatever. They don't have the money to do that. And they don't have the money to miss out of work for a week to be able to do that move. So at least with $1,000 a month, they can save that extra $1,000 while they're working and built up $12K in a year. And they can use that to pay first month's rent, first month's security, and the means to get to that place, and start a new life at a place where cost of living is cheaper and their low wage kind of work can carry them further, Sounds a bit like a vegan way, saying that if everyone becomes vegan overnight, it will all be changed. Yeah, exactly. And it's just unrealistic. It's never going to happen that, billions of people are going to go from eating meat to not eating meat the next day. But if you start small and start coming up with these little solutions, maybe it'll happen. Like in vitro meat is a solution to people eating meat. It's a good one, but people aren't funding it because, and I argue with vegans about this, vegans don't really support it that much because they just want people to stop eating meat overnight. But it's like, hey, this is a step towards that. like why wouldn't you like this step? It's so weird. It's weird that people are like that, but what are you gonna do? Curb climate change, blah blah blah. Where was I? Self and your families. As Max Reed of New York Magazine summed it up, Andrew Yang 2020, the world is fucked. It's true, the world is fucked. You're on your own, take some money, head to higher ground. Well, he never said you were on your own. That's made up. That didn't happen. In fact, the UBI is kind of saying you're not on your own, right? Like, we're all in this together. We're all fucked. Let's help each other out, basically. Take some money, head to higher ground. Or as Brian Kahn, our sister site Earther, put it, well, I mean, if that's your sister site, Earther, I'm sure it has as much credibility as Jezebel does, right? The Heritage Foundation called, and it wants its white paper back. I don't know what that means. What is white paper back? And it wants it. I have no idea what that means. I don't even know what the Heritage Foundation is, so I guess I'm lost on that one, but that's fine. Yang then released his actual climate change plan in August. Again, I trust our friends at Earther. Yeah, you trust them, all right, because they're the same kind of propagandists you are. When they wrote of it, emphasis mine. So what are we to make of Yang's plan? If Bernie's is a revolution, well, it really isn't, and Inslee's was dubbed a blueprint, then Yang's is Silicon Valley's entry into how we do this whole climate change solutions thing. It combines unproven technological fixes, no it doesn't, and magically thinking while also having a bit of a blind spot for environmental justice. I'm not sure what environmental justice means. But unproven technological fixes? No. What he wants to do is fund research into new technologies that will fix this. Because according to science and climate change scientists and stuff like that, we are too late. We're past the point of preventative measures, because even if we stop now, it's still a problem for the future. We're at the point where we have to figure out a reversal of the problem, which he has said carbon capture is something he wants to fund and research. Maybe it's not proven, but we don't know if it works until we try it out and research it and see what we can come up with. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to working on old solutions that don't seem to work and we're just going to prevent it. Yeah, it's not going to get worse if we prevent it, but I mean, we also need a reversal, and it's better to work on reversal now than not than later, you know, because it's already causing problems. It's a plan that at once makes solving climate change feel hopeless. Yeah, it kind of is hopeless, though. I mean, if you listen to the science, it is kind of hopeless. Like these people are just in denial, really, or at least they believe in it. So I mean, I don't understand where the denial is, but anyways, and yet the solutions feel breezy when in some cases they'll be anything but. I don't know what she means by that. That's okay. And that heady, strange brew is what still makes the whole thing feel like a house of cards on the beach with a hurricane swirling in the horizon. Well, that's kind of what climate change feels like, right? This UBI gives you a chance to leave that house of cards on the beach and go somewhere else where that hurricane isn't swirling on the horizon. Yet Yang's brand of fake redistribution politics and technocratic fixes is proving remarkably durable. His latest stunt, where he announced a lottery in which he'd select 10 families who'd get $1,000 per month, helped him net a cool $1 million in donations and almost $500,000 in new email signups. Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of the point of a campaign, right? Is to promote yourself and try to get as many people to know who you are as possible and listen to you and listen to your policies. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, Pete Buttigieg was doing a like a lottery for somebody to win and go and fly to some convention he's going to and have dinner with him. Like, that's what people do. They use their campaign funds in order to try to promote themselves and get their message out there. It's clear that Yang is resonating with people who feel left behind. He got the problems right, Yang is fond of saying about Donald Trump. His solutions, he adds, were just wrong. This is an incredibly stupid thing to say about the president. But like him, Yang doesn't get the problems right either. But hey, the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math, right? I guess that's the end of it. Maybe I'll go through some of the comments people left here, but for now, let me check the chat. Yeah, I think he's got the problems right, and maybe not the solutions, but a way to make things better and help those problems get to the solutions little by little. Blah, blah. Sounds a bit okay. Move to the Midwest. Everyone is hiring, and no one cares about your skin color. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. UBI would definitely help. That would help people move out of the coasts, because a large number of people living check to check, as somebody put the stat. I think it was SAS, but in the end, a lot of those tend to be in major cities on the coast. So yeah, that would definitely help that. Um, am I still on? I left it on my Twitter. Sorry. Let me for now. I'll leave it on this while I chat with you guys for a bit before I read the comments left on that article. Survey suggests little or no Midwest economic growth in view. What survey says? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I haven't looked into that. All the people are fleeing Chicago. Yeah. Give me a second, guys. I need to drain myself. I will be back in a few seconds. All right, I'm back. Back to the chat. No bio breaks for you. Yeah, I should have just peed in my pants in my chair so that I can keep streaming like a real streamer. Tiffany, if you're not doing anything and you want to come in the live stream channel in the Discord, let me know. You want to join me? We could talk about this. I can understand people's skepticisms or maybe a bit of fear of UBI. I was kind of skeptical about it at first as well. But what I did, which is what I don't understand, other people don't do this, but what I did was I studied it. If you're afraid of something, a policy or something, and you don't think it would work, the best thing you could do is study it as much as you can so that you can explain why it won't work. Stream your stream. What's up, Carter? I get this a lot. People trying to argue UBI or specifically Yang's UBI with me, and they don't know how it works. Like Shane, I'm not blaming, I'm not trying to diss Shane or anything, but like as you saw earlier, Shane was like, "Well, where does the money come from?" I mean, he's not actually trying to argue against me, so I don't blame him. But that happens a lot when I'm actually arguing with people and they're arguing against me, and they say, "Well, where are you going to get the money? Won't it cause inflation?" And it's like, why are you arguing with me about it without knowing anything about it? Like, why don't you go check it out? I understand that not everybody's going to know about it, but I can give you the links. I can tell you where to look, but it's not hard. Just Google. You can Google UBI. You'll get a bunch of links to places that talk about it. You can go to Andrew Yang's website and look it up. What's up, Red Guy? Or if you want to look into the UBI experiments, just type in Google UBI experiments and you'll get a list of all the UBI experiments conducted around the world and their outcomes, the ones that we know the outcomes of yet. There's still some being ran now that we're not sure of, that we haven't finished yet, so we don't know their outcomes. So, it's not something difficult. I think that if you're skeptical of something or you want to debate something or want to talk against something because you don't like the idea, you should really know about as much about it as you can, because that will help you with your arguments. If you don't, you're kind of wasting each other's time. You're wasting your own time and you're wasting the other person's time, because now they have to explain all this stuff to you. And if you notice on the internet, a lot of these discussions tend to be typed out. And man, trying to argue with somebody about UBI over Twitter is fucking difficult, man. You can only type so much, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, you gotta wait for them to respond. You don't know how long it's gonna take. And then by that time, you kind of forget what the argument was already. And it's like, oh man. So it's not easy. It's definitely a lot easier if both people know what they're talking about. And then you can really get both sides of it. If not, you're just arguing from ignorance, and it makes it so much difficult. It just makes it annoying, frustrating, difficult. As I told somebody last night, I don't argue British with people about British politics because I don't know much about British politics. Where would I would just come off like an idiot, right? Because I don't know shit about British politics. In the end, I don't care about British politics. I don't care about arguing against British politics. I'm American. I don't care about their politics. But if I did, and I really wanted to argue against their politics and the way they do things, I would study on that to make sure I knew what I was talking about so that I don't waste people's time. Hasn't every UBI experiment failed? I don't think so. I don't think any have failed. As far as I know. I mean, Namibia showed some beneficial outcome. The Manitoba one showed a lot of beneficial outcome. So, I mean, Brazil is still not sure. You know what I'm saying? They're still conducting it in some places, but they're doing it very different. The UBI in Brazil is not universal. It's only for certain people. They want to make it universal, but they're starting at the bottom and giving it to the 20% of people in the lowest, who have the lowest amount of money, and then they're going to build up from there, but the build up is going to be hard like that. What's up, Nessa? If we do UBI, can we cancel all the other... Yeah, that's kind of the point of UBI. You can't have certain social programs, like welfare, SNAP, housing stuff. You can't have those and UBI. You have to choose one or the other. And part of paying for the UBI are going to be the people who choose to go to UBI, which will end up consolidating these programs, making them less, making us spend less on it. So yeah, the thought is eventually UBI will basically replace all other social programs. Do we steal from rich people to pay for UBI? No, we don't steal. We tax. That's a totally different thing. In fact, it's kind of working the opposite now. Rich people are stealing from America. What we're doing is trying to get that money back that they're stealing and circulate it back into the country because of trickle down economics from Reagan era that basically had them pay less taxes, created all these loopholes for them to not pay taxes. And, as I stated earlier, Netflix, Google, Amazon, one of the three of the most prosperous companies in America, making billions of dollars a year, are paying almost nothing in taxes, either paying nothing or next to nothing in taxes every year because they're finding loopholes and not giving back monies. Carter, taxation of theft. Yeah, I'm totally for UBI if we can cancel other programs. Yeah, that's Yang's point, actually. He wants to consolidate social programs and kind of, in the long run at least, because he knows that you just can't tell people, we're getting rid of all these programs. He knows people aren't going to like that. So so it's going to be a long game of UBI versus social programs, and he's going to lighten, slowly and slowly trying to get people off social programs and incentivizing them to jump onto UBI instead, which is a way better system. A UBI would help with disability benefits. Yeah, in the article I just read, the lady said that you couldn't get disability and UBI, which is not true. Yang has said multiple times, disability is not really like a social program. It's, you have a disability, you can't work. So you're getting money for that, and it's helping you. So you can keep your disability and get UBI. What you can't do is be on welfare or SNAP, which is like food stamps and stuff like that, and be on UBI. You can't do that. My UBI program would just be no taxes. Well, if you did no taxes, then money wouldn't circulate, and we'd, not on top of not circulating, but places would crumble. How would we pay for public schools? How would we pay for police? You could privatize those things, but then if you think of like a small town where it's not affordable for a company, they're not making enough money to have police, they're just going to leave. They're going to be like, well, nobody wants to open a police station here because they're not going to get enough money to pay for police. Yeah, that's what I was just explaining now. How about just not taxes? You can't do that. That's not going to work in a country like ours. You could do that maybe in the small scale in some places, but you can't do that on a large scale because a lot of places will be left behind. The places that would do good with no taxes are mostly coastal major cities, like New York City would do fine because, there's plenty of people there, lots of money can go around, but small towns they'd turn into ghost towns. What is the incentive for somebody to open up a fire station and pay firemen, purchase fire trucks, pay for the water that they're spending and all that stuff in a place where there's not that many people in town? They don't make a lot of money. They can't really afford that. So how would they pay for that? And what would be the incentive for them to stay there? There wouldn't be. All the incentive would actually be on them closing down that fire station if they're not making enough money to keep that fire station open. We need a flat tax. I don't care the number as long as it's the same for everyone. I'm good with percentage, which I think UBI would be that, except for necessities. Necessities won't be taxed. Just like sales tax now. I know here in New Jersey, I don't know if it's nationwide, maybe different states do it different, but here in New Jersey, there's no tax on necessities, so you don't pay tax for food or clothes. Rich people have enough money that they try to smuggle into other countries. Why not let their money bag bleed a bit? Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the point, is that they're hoarding their money and they're not paying the taxes that everybody else is paying in the United States. You know what I'm saying? We're all paying taxes. I'm paying taxes. Why shouldn't Netflix pay taxes? You know what I'm saying? They're making billions of dollars and not paying taxes. You know what I'm saying? Give it back to the country like you're supposed to. They're getting away with that. But again, with what Shane was saying, how about just no taxes? There's no candidate proposing that, so that's not even part of the talking point here. We can't have that talking. Well, we could talk about it, but it's useless because nobody's trying to do that. So the whole point of UBI is somebody is actually trying to pass it, and that's why I think he's the best candidate going on right now, because he's trying to do something. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody running against him that I can vote for that's saying, let's get rid of taxes. Nobody's doing that. I don't make enough to have to pay taxes, so that would be nothing for most of the poor. Yeah. Yeah, for most of the poor, they don't pay taxes. That's true. But for some people live right at that line where they're living check to check and do have to pay taxes, and that kind of breaks them, and kind of just keeps them at that level. They can't progress or move on anywhere. Because money is property and it belongs to them. We have the rule of law. You can't just take shit from people. I don't agree with that. Um, there are services. You're like with a sales tax. I agree with income tax. What Carter's saying, but with like sales and stuff, you're making transactions within a state, within a country. Those are services the country is providing for you. They don't need to let you do that. They can easily say, "Hey, you can't do business there." You know what I'm saying? But they're letting you do business there. And on top of that, if you have a business in, say, Texas, and you're in a town, just make up the name of a town in Texas, you want to pay your taxes because those taxes are going to go towards the roads that lead people to you. The things in that community that need to be paid for that help people get to you and help people come to spend money in your town. I mean, if you weren't paying any taxes and you had a business in a small town, what if nobody wanted to work on a road there and then nobody can get to your store? Yeah, same thing, Carter, in New Jersey, but we have three levels of tax. We have no tax for necessities. Then stuff like McDonald's and stuff, like you can go to a supermarket and not get taxed for food, but if you go to like McDonald's and shit like that, there's a minimal tax you get, like a 3% tax, and then our full tax is 7%, which is for luxury items and stuff like that. Article because they smuggled that money out. Okay, taxes are not stealing because you are paying for something. Your community. Yeah, that's the problem that people don't. It's a perspective issue. People tend to stick to one perspective and they don't look at the overall perspective of everything. There's a big picture. And I think a lot of people are saying taxation is theft. A lot of people who say that don't look at the big picture. Like I was saying about small towns, you get rid of taxes. Small towns are fucked when it comes to schooling, fire departments, police, they're fucked. You know what I'm saying? If it's not a lucrative thing for a business to open a police station somewhere or a fire department somewhere or a public school somewhere, public schools are expensive. You're going to build a school, you got to fill it up with teachers, with janitors, you have to get the books for it, you have to get the technology for it. That's expensive. If you don't have enough students in that town to pay for all those things, then or if the people there just can't even afford all those things, then they can't send their child there. That business is not going to thrive. They're going to be bleeding money and they're going to decide to leave. Roads as well. If it's not lucrative, there's not enough people in a town to build a road for them to drive out of that town to go to work, then that road is fucked. Roads, police, and fire aren't where the money is being spent. So I think that's kind of bad. Now, it is when it comes to the state level. That's why I said income tax. I agree with you. But with state level, our state taxes do go to that. It goes to infrastructure for the state. It goes for police, for fire, for public schools. We pay for those things through our state taxes. I could be wrong about Texas. Maybe that's not how Texas is, but that's how it is in New Jersey. In New Jersey, our state tax goes towards all those things, all the public services that New Jersey provides. Is UBI going to replace all the welfare? It's going to in the long run. That's what they want to do. That's the point of it. Is that's what it wants to do. They're going to consolidate it, and it's a choice. But at some point, if the economy does better and better, UBI is going to go up, and eventually, it's going to be way more beneficial for anybody on welfare to switch to UBI as opposed to stay on welfare, and then we can close welfare. Welfare would be unnecessary anymore. Also, if I really our state and local, not federal. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. That's why I said I agree with you when it comes to income tax, but not when it comes to state tax. But when you say tax is theft, you're talking about tax in general. If you want to be specific, please be specific. Our community votes on what taxes we pay. That as well. That's the democratic way. So, I mean, I often don't understand when things are voted in and people complain about it because that's democracy. The only way for us to get around that is to not have a democracy anymore. Yeah, UBI would be a federal thing. I was talking about federal tax, specifically income tax. But UBI is not an income tax. It would not in any way affect your yearly tax payments. So it doesn't. It's kind of a federal thing, but it's kind of not because the money doesn't come from the government. It's a circulation of money and it's automated. I would love that opt-in to UBI and relinquish rights to other programs. Yeah, yeah. That's what that's what he's running on. That's what Yang's running on. He's giving a choice. He's telling people on welfare, hey, this is $1,000 a month. You could spend it any way you want, but instead of being on a welfare that restricts the way you spend money, maybe you're making 1200 a month on welfare, but you have to spend that on certain things. It might be beneficial to you to say, hey, you know what? I'll cut off that $200, but at least I got $1,000. I can spend money on anything. I mean, me being a person who's lived in the ghetto, I've seen many times people sell their food stamps so they can have cash on hand and sell it for less than the food stamps are worth because they need money. You know what I'm saying? They need to spend on other things besides food. So, they have enough food and the rest of those food stamps are just sitting there. So they might as well sell $80 of food stamps for, $60. So in that case, it would be better for some people to say, I'm getting 1,200 from welfare. Let me leave that and get the 1,000 from UBI where I can spend it, in cash and spend it any way I want. Nessa, even the schools put bond issues on the ballot with oversight committees. Yeah. Carter and Alf, and who is going to fire all those people who get those government paychecks? I don't think they'll be fired. They may be moved over to other things. I mean, there's other government jobs you can move over to a different kind of job. Some of them could probably be moved over to the UBI committee. Some of them will probably be moved over to other stuff. I mean, we can figure it out. It's not that big of a deal. Democracy is tyranny of the majority, where, I mean, we're not going to keep welfare just to keep people working at it. You know what I'm saying? That's just, it's just not sensible. Democracy is tyranny of the majority, where 51% of the people can vote to fuck over the 49%. Well, if that's the case, then, I mean, you'd have to find a candidate who's willing to get rid of democracy. If not, it's kind of irrelevant, right? Just because you voted doesn't make it right or more. It's true. But, I mean, if you have a better way, maybe you can run for candidacy with your better way and see if it works. I don't think it will, though. I think if any candidate goes up there and says, I'm going to vote, vote for me and I'll get rid of voting, vote for me and I'll get rid of democracy. Like, I don't think anybody's going to vote for those people. 100% of people could vote to take my free speech and that would still not be legal. Yeah, but again, like I said, we don't have any other system. So if you can come up with a better system, go for it. Try to run on it, because if not, things are going to stay the same. Which is why I say Yang is the best candidate. He might not have the best solutions out of the entire country of people, but he has the best solutions of those who are trying to run and implement these solutions. So, who else am I going to vote for, personally? It's nobody else trying to solve the problems that I think are the issues of this country. So. All right, let's read some of the comments on this article. Let me show you guys the article again, and let's get to it. But good talking. I like this. This is, somebody said, this is the most ridiculous smear of Yang I have seen thus far. Congrats. I was at the Yang rally in LA last night, and white males were in the minority. Proof of your gross mischaracterization. Yeah, it's LA. That makes sense. There's going to be a lot of Asians, a lot of Hispanics, like, duh. It seems that many Asian Americans feel very differently to you. They came and supported in droves. Yeah, Yang does have a huge Asian support. Edit. I see that my comment is awaiting approval. Let's see if diversity of opinion is allowed here. I guess it was, because they did put it through. It's funny that they screen comments, though. I didn't know that. Honestly, I could pick apart this article line by line, which is what I did. I just hope other readers have the sense to listen to the guy talk for an hour, or rather than buy your BS. You think other Democratic candidates have substantive... Yeah, it's a weird word that I'm not used to saying. Substantive policies, while Yang is all hot air. Who else deconstructs problems and proposes solutions like this? Well, I'm not going to play the video, but if you wanted to, it's right here from Now This, which I don't like, but they've actually done a good job of covering Andrew Yang, to be honest. They've covered him pretty fairly. 2020 hopeful Andrew Yang talks about voters in D. I don't know what that means, but you can look that up and probably find it if you search for that title. 100% agree. This might be the worst smear article I have ever seen written. As a journalist of any sort, you should be ashamed. Do some research. Thanks for saying exactly what's in my mind. Coming from the tech field myself and helping companies transform with AI, his freedom dividend makes absolute sense. He is also the only candidate who has a grasp of tech. Tech used by our government is getting antiquated. Having someone with Yang's perspective will be a much needed fresh air. That's a good point. I never even thought of that point. That him being from tech and understanding tech will be good for getting the government off of these old antiquated systems. Which would probably lower a lot of red tape and wait time for stuff. I agree, Sebastian. This article is immature and mischaracterizes what he represents at best. Andrew Yang's ideas are by far the most comprehensive and well thought out. I agree with that. I was saying this, I think, in my last video where I said that most of the politicians just pay lip service. They say, we're going to, give universal health care and we're going to do this and that, but they never explain how. They just say they're going to do it. Andrew Yang says he's going to do things and explains how, and he shows you where where things come from, how he's going to change things to try to make these true. At least he's open about how things work, and how they can work. And he'll admit when things can't work, just like a lot of people like Joe Biden now talking about automation now all of a sudden and saying we're going to do job training. Well, Yang said, well, in the last couple decades, every time the government has tried to do job training for displaced workers, it's failed. It's got a low percentage rate of success. So it's not working out. We need to try something else. And I agree with that. One of the things I hate about this country is we continue to do things that don't work. And we continue to do them for decades. And it takes forever to get rid of things that don't work. We need to move those things. The second we find out things don't work, it's, let's get rid of them. Or we can give it some extra time to see if there was some growing pains and it balances out. But if it doesn't in a set amount of time, it's time to get rid of that and try something new, What I like most about Yang is that he's extremely intelligent. He can name 23 out of the 24 candidates. No one has an IQ to even come close. Well, and he's genuine. I didn't know that either. I don't know how true that is, though. I would want to see a citation on that, on the IQs of all these candidates. He answers questions on the fly, and he has well-rehearsed and thought-out answers. That is true. Hey, take it easy. She has a full-time job writing advertising copy for Jewel. Kind of hard to follow all this politics stuff, too. Okay, back to the chat. Oh, there's been quite a few. Let's see. So, Carter and Shane. But if 100% of people would vote to take... Okay, I've read that already. If UBI is a thing... So if UBI is a thing, I get all my payroll taxes back if it covers the 1K paycheck. I don't understand. You might have to rephrase that, Shane. I really don't understand that question. What do you mean? I get all my payroll taxes back? I'm not sure what that means. Oh, you mean like for each check, all the taxes you get taken out of it? I mean, if it balances out to the 1K, yeah, then you're just basically making back the taxes that were getting taken from you, which is also a good thing. Which is UBI, another form of UBI is a negative income tax, where you get basically tax credits, Instead of getting $1,000 a month, you would have negative 1,000 income tax every year, which is basically the same thing. It doesn't really make anything any different. It's just a different way of doing it. Rule of majority with consideration for the minority, that's how... Shit. That doesn't mean it works well. Yeah, I mean, I have my problems. One of my biggest problems with democracy is I think that we have way too many people who don't understand politics. They don't pay attention to it, and they're out there voting, but they don't know what they're voting for. I mean, I think there's a large chunk of America that does that. Shane Barebacks, there's a big argument that the large beneficiary of welfare is the federal employees who are running the welfare system, not the recipients. There's a famous Reagan quote where he points out if you just wrote a check to everyone who got welfare payout, they would have each gotten 20K. Okay. The only thing I get 1K a month is if I don't have to pay taxes before I get my 1K paycheck. Yeah, but I mean, either way you break even, right? So what's the issue? That goes for nearly every political system we ever had. Politics are, and will always be a dirty thing. Yeah. The only thing people can do is to vote for the least worst one. Yeah, I agree, Xenofex. That's a good statement. Carter agreed that the government employees benefit most from welfare. Yeah, it's true. Do I get my 1K paycheck before or after I have to file my payroll? Yeah, you just get it every month, no questions asked. It doesn't... When do you file your payroll? Every first of the month, let's put it that way. I'm not sure if that's the case. Maybe it'll be every 15th, but I mean, I would assume it would be every first of the month. A giant douche and a turd sandwich. Choose one. Yeah. That's what Milton Friedman would propose in negative income tax. Yeah, but Milton Friedman was also for UBI and was the reason, and him and a bunch of economists were the reason why Carter, talking to Carter, was why Richard Nixon tried to pass UBI twice in 1970 and was stopped by the Democrats who wanted a higher floor for it. But it's funny that but basically most of the government was for UBI. The only issue was how much to put into it. And that's why it didn't pass, because they couldn't figure out how much, they couldn't agree on how much to put into it. All right, back to this. White nationalists find Asians to be the most agreeable non-white group in our society. While I don't think this statement is incorrect, I do think this still mischaracterizes white nationalists, the sheer level of antagonism white nationalists harbor towards Asians. It's not, that's, who cares? Not even an issue. You aren't incorrect, but I think the authors make they're just going to keep talking about white nationalists and Asians. Yeah. Let's see what else. The amount of brand new commenters on this article is something else. Yeah, well, the Yang Gang's pretty strong. Post something spicy over on Reddit and watch them all disappear back into their home to respond. Considering Jez shadow bans every account that doesn't parrot the company's line, it's not a surprise. Yang has been polling 4th to 6th nationally, as I said that earlier, and reached 8% last week. At some point, you'll realize that he has national support, and it's not 2018 anymore. He isn't your meme candidate. He's the real deal, and maybe you should consider that the internet is made of, actual people. You know what's funny about this is I think you need to raise about 6% to be considered for the running in the end. So his percentage is good enough. If he ran, that he may have made the issue of running Democrat. If he ran independent, he might have actually made it to the final nominees, because he'd be the nominee for the independent run. Whereas with the Democrats, who knows if the DNC is going to fuck him over and say, no, we're choosing this person, It's kind of funny that he probably had he might have a better chance if he ran independent. All right, nothing else in chat. Yeah, the astroturfing here is embarrassing. Every single one of them is at least 2 paragraphs with formatting and buzzwords, and they all stick out like a sore thumb. It's amazing that they think it's believable here. See what this guy says. I think this article overlooks a fair bit of information about Yang and his ideas, mainly that his UBI proposal does not replace any existing welfare programs. That's not true. It stacks on top of all public benefits besides some of the cash-like ones. SNAP, TANF. It stacks on some. I guess that's what he's saying, but it doesn't seem like... I don't think he might have the full grasp of what he's saying. Which typically have monthly benefits much lower than the $1,000 of the most families. If a household has 3 adults living at home, say 1 parent and 1 grandparent, and they receive $600 in cash like benefits currently, under UBI they would instead opt in to getting 2 $1,000 freedom dividends, trading in $600 for $2,000, and also no longer needing to report any income fill-out, any forms follow-up with social workers. That's true. The other thing that's good about it that people would want UBI for is because they get to cut through red tape. They don't have to go to the welfare offices like once a month to report anything, or to, it just cuts everything out. And on top of that, if they have kids, maybe it's not beneficial when their kids are under 18 to get the welfare because they're getting more money for each kid. But as those kids reach 18 years old, those kids are now applicable to getting the $1,000 a month, and that would stack up maybe even higher. Say they got $500, a kid has 2 kids, that's $1,000 they're getting plus the welfare for them. Let's say they get like $1,500. Well, now, and them switching to UBI with their kids under 18 would only give them $1,000. But now if one kid reaches 18, now that kid can get $1,000 too, and now we're talking about $2,000 against. Well, now they lost the $500 from that kid too because he turns 18. They're not going to give you welfare for him. So now they're down to $1,000 with welfare, or $2,000 in a household for UBI, and that works out much better. So as people on welfare have kids that are turning 18, they're going to want to switch over to UBI so that they get more money into the household. I don't doubt that Yang's UBI dividend proposal can be improved in several ways if he is elected and the posse comes up for vote in Congress, but I think it's a fantastic starting point and does one thing that our current safety net fails to do: reach all people living in poverty, not just the ones who can make it through the application process and continuous reporting requirements. I'd love it if other candidates began supporting UBI. Yeah, they're starting to. Here's a solid article about the specifics of Yang's plan. Well, Here's the article if you guys want to look it up on Medium. But yeah, that was a good point this guy made. It's what I've been saying. It's not about that it's the best and can't be any better. Sure, there could be better ways of doing things, but it's the best we've got from somebody running right now, coming out of somebody who's running, and it would have a benefit. And why not take the little benefit before we get the big benefit? I've been donating to Yang every time they ask me, Jamie. It's like you get a text and it's like, please donate. You're like, oh, okay, I have to. But I guess Jamie's on the Yang gang too. That's good. It is beneficial. I don't see. A lot of people argue at me about it, saying that it's going to make things worse. It's going to crash the economy. I don't see how it can do that. I don't understand how it can make things worse. Nobody ever gives me a good description of why. They don't understand. They just keep saying that. Got into an argument yesterday. All I get from it is, he's not going to win. UBI sucks. And I'm like, why does it suck? And they were like, well, it's going to crash the economy and cause the global economy to drop. And I'm like, how? Can you explain how? And they never answered me. They never gave me an explanation of how it does that. And it's because they don't understand the program. They want to, like I said before, they want to argue out of ignorance. They don't understand what it is. They just have an idea that UBI would crash because they hear, how the hell is a country going to afford giving $1,000 a month to like 300 plus million people? Well, he has it broken down and shows you how. Why not look that up so you can argue against that? I'm not saying you're going to look it up and change your mind and be like, oh yeah, this totally works. This is great. But, at least if you look it up and you still want to argue against it, you know what you're arguing against, as opposed to just making things up on the fly. Let's see what this person says. Thank you for correcting those inaccuracies. Esther Wang's statements about Yang's climate change plan are also inaccurate. That's easy information for people to check on Yang's website and go. There's a thing here to talk about that. I want to bring up the question of why a left-leaning writer is publishing an article about Yang that is riddled with inaccuracies. Oh, I know why. I'm going to talk about that in a second, because all these things have been coming out a lot lately, and there's a reason for this, and I'll let you know. And I am a person on the left who would be almost as pumped with Trump winning one more term as they would be with the victorious Warren or Sanders. Another way to put it, there are people on the left who would be happier with Trump than with a Democratic president who was willing to come to the table with the Republican leaders of despicables and do the hard, gritty work of moving the whole country forward. Another Trump presidency in 4 more years, filled with reasons to scream for a living and feel superior to millions of other people. Now, why are all these articles coming out all of a sudden? Why are all these videos? AJ Plus just did one. Here's Jezebel doing one, bashing Yang. We've been seeing some news sites doing that too. Why is this happening now? I will tell you. It's happening now because Yang is kicking fucking ass. That's why. He was a joke for a long time. He came out of nowhere. He's proposing this new idea. It's not new, but new idea to most people. And nobody thought he would do as good as he was doing. They just didn't see that happening. But now he's kicking ass. He's taking the other candidates' votes. Like we were reading from that other person, he's up to 8% when he was at 1 or 2% for the longest time. He's riding 4th to 6% in the polls of all the candidates. He just made big news now as being like one of the first candidates to make $10 million in 1 quarter just from individual funds. Most candidates get donations from corporations and rich people and stuff like that. Yang made $10 million in 1 quarter, which is more than triple what he made last quarter. Last quarter, he made $2.8 million in donations. This quarter, he made $10 million, which is more than triple, just from donations to his website from people, just from the average individual's average citizen. That is an amazing feat. I don't think anybody's ever done that in history, but that's something that people have to look up. But that's an amazing feat, and it shows how fast he's rising up, how fast he's getting popular and getting support. Not just a couple months ago, he was in last place, right? Now he's in 4th or 6th out of 15 candidates. It's insane. But that's why these people are making these articles about him, because these people are supporters of other candidates. Like, this girl here, she kept talking about Warren and Bernie. A lot of people on the far left, they want either Warren or Bernie. Those people appeal to them. Yang isn't left enough for these people. That's what it is. Yang is more like me. Like me, the way I put myself in the spectrum would be I'm on the left, but I'm not all the way to the left, right? I'm kind of somewhere in between the middle of the left and the center of the whole thing, of the whole spectrum, right? I think that's where Yang's at. You know what I'm saying? He's not all the way to the left. He's kind of in the middle somewhere. He doesn't agree with identity politics. His slogan is not left, not right, forward, right? I think a lot of us are disenfranchised with this whole polarization of politics where everything's left and right and we never reach a compromise. We never hit a middle point and things take so long to change because it's just this or that, this or that, this or that. If we're not getting this, then you're not getting that. You know what I'm saying? And when we should be trying to find a middle solution that everybody can be at least somewhat happy with, and we can move forward and try to, make things better. Jamie said, I also tell the Bernie and Biden text that I'm voting for Yang. That's great, Jamie. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because now it's like you're seeing, I said this before, you're seeing all these candidates starting to copy Yang, and they're copying his talking points. They're talking the things he says. Bernie Sanders came out not too long ago saying he's sympathetic to UBI. He thinks it's a good plan, but he thinks his plan is better. Obviously, he's running on it. He's going to think his plan is better. But he said he's sympathetic to it. It's funny, AJ Plus tried to use that as a downfall to it and say that, oh, look what Bernie says, he's against UBI, and then you read it and you hear it and you're like, no, he just said he was sympathetic to UBI. That means he thinks it's a good idea. Duh. You saw him skateboarding, TJ? Yeah, that was funny. He almost wiped out, but he caught himself. He landed well for somebody who wiped out off his skateboard. Yang and Tulsi 2024, that should be the focus. I'm cool with that. I mean, my thing is, I say Yang might not make it this time. He started from the bottom. He's done an extremely well job of building his way up. But that doesn't mean that he will make his way up to number one. That doesn't mean that he's had enough time to, even with the way he's going now. Might not. I don't know how his growth will continue. If it continues down the path he is right now, and his growth keeps continuing this way exponentially, yeah, he might make it to one. But you never know. Maybe next quarter he makes a little less, or it doesn't reach as many people as he's been reaching. So he might not make it this time. But with the way he's grown, the next time for 2024, he's not starting at the bottom anymore. He's going to start in third or second, you know what I'm saying, and be at the top already, which gives him plenty of time. Plus 4 years is plenty of time for him to continue promoting himself, continue getting people to look into his ideas. I think the reason Yang is growing so much is that his ideas are different from the other politicians. So people are scared of it, and I think it takes a while for people to join the Yang gang, you know what I'm saying? For people to go on his side, because you have to look into it. You got to understand what he's talking about. But you can't, this is why I say about people arguing, you can't just argue about things out of ignorance. Why not look it up and find out and make your own mind, as opposed to just ignoring it the whole time and just, arguing against it without knowing what it is. Of course they copy him. He has connection to the people. Something, and yeah, it's true. That's also another thing about Yang is he's relatable to people. He seems like a normal Gen X guy. You know what I'm saying? A normal 44-year-old man. He has 2 kids. He has a wife. He used to skateboard, and he's not afraid as a candidate to jump on a skateboard and show people him riding around. He's not afraid to crowd surf and stuff like that, He's not afraid to show that he's a normal guy. And a lot of people doubt him, but it's like, hey, Trump won last time. Trump came out of nowhere, you know what I'm saying? Not really. Everybody knew who Trump was for decades. I've known who Trump was since the 80s and seen him on the news in the 80s all the time, especially living near New York City where he was doing most of his stuff. But still, Trump has no history of politics. He just jumps in and fucking takes it. You know what I'm saying? Everybody thought he was a joke at first too, and thought, nah, there's no way Trump is going to win. You know what I'm saying? But he did, And that totally shows that anybody can do it. I think Yang is good for that too. I think another benefit of Yang is that he's showing people out there and inspiring people to say, hey, I can run for politics too on different ideas. I can be a normal guy too and run for politics with different ideas, not the same ideas that have been going around, and gain popularity. That's the thing about Yang. He's shocking everyone. He's breaking records, basically. I like when guys are growers. Growers, not showers. Or growers and showers. Solid concern trolling here. Arthur secretly wants to make an extra few dollars for clicks in exchange for continued Trump reign. Nailed it, dummy. Yeah. Andrew Yang said that if you opt into his UBI plan, I don't know the weird English here, would have to opt out of entitlements, but he was never clear what entitlements were. That's not true. He is clear about it. You just haven't looked into it enough. You probably just heard one talk where he summarized it and didn't have enough time to break down all the things. But if it were just food stamps, then that would be one thing, but it would be WIC and Section 8 as well. Yeah, probably, but I don't see a problem with that because Section 8, in my experience, where I live, Section 8 gives you about 600 to 800 for rent. I think UBI is better than that, right? UBI gives you 1,000, so that's better. WIC as well. WIC doesn't really give you too much, here at least. Yes, we want 4 more years of and I live in one of the most expensive states to live in. So, yes, we want 4 more years of existential angst, so we can shout about our existential angst more. Yeah, it's a good cop. Damn, I was just thinking of something else to say, but forgot it that I was gonna go on a tangent about. I was listening to the last debate as I was driving home, and when Yang said, I'm Asian, so I know a lot of doctors, I actually said, holy shit, I'm Jewish, and I'll make jokes like Yang did, and I wouldn't do it in mixed company. The Shane McGillis thing pissed me off. Yeah, that's because you're a bunch of fucking outrage culture people. Like, you just want to kick people because they did something bad, but, teaching people that they're wrong and better ways to be is a better way of doing things than just kicking them all the time. Because once you have somebody who's really disenfranchised and just constantly get kicked while they're down, even though it might be deserved because they did something wrong, those people get angrier and angrier. And that's why we have like shootings and shit like that. Because these are people who feel like they're just constantly being kicked while they're down and nobody ever wants to hear them and be like, hey, what's your problem? What's going on? Let's talk about it. Maybe we'd have a lot less shootings if people did that and talked to people as opposed to shitting on them all the time. You can't release these 2 statements and believe both of them. Oh, that he's talking about her. For the record, I do not think he should lose his job. We would benefit from being more forgiving rather than punitive. And then also, it's also the case of anti-Asian racism is particularly virulent because it's somehow considered more acceptable. If Shane had used the N-word, blah, blah, blah. If someone don't deserve to lose their job for using literal racial slurs, what do they deserve to lose it for? Oh, for failing at their job. That's kind of what they deserve to lose it for. A job is a job, right? The people you get fired from your job for not doing your job or failing at your job. Yang comes across as a kind of cringy techno-libertarian that is way too prevalent in our societies. Yeah. Well, those are the people that are going to be taken over because technology is the largest, most profitable thing out there. So those are going to be the people taken over. $10. Oh, thank you, Nessa. Thank you for the love. TJ, UBI is better than the other programs because if you make more money on the other programs, they take it away. Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Yeah. Good point. Welfare is adjustable and is constantly being adjusted. You have to check in every month and they see how much money you make and what you're using your money on and stuff like that. And that's a good point, TJ. 1, you admit that you make racist jokes as a Jewish and then become upset when Yang does it. I think there is a word that describes your condition, and it is called hypocrite. Yeah, that's true. 2, if you actually read what Yang said, he actually said that he is hurt by the Shane's comments, but actually did some research on his background. He realized that he isn't evil and seeks to educate, not hate him, which I agree with 100%. Did you read an article on how a black person actually converted many KKK members by befriending them? Yeah, it works. I've seen that article passed around. The black guy started hanging out with KKK members. He just wouldn't, they didn't want him around, and he just wouldn't leave. He just kept coming and talking to them. Eventually, they started talking to him back, and then eventually they started liking him, and then became friends with him, And then they left the KKK, because they were like, wow, this black guy's really cool. He's a nice guy. He comes here, he talks to us, he's really cool. It's like maybe the issue is us, That's called having self-awareness. Sometimes you need self-awareness to smack you in the face to have it. Yang took the route of MLK and seeks to forgive. Also explain to me that how the heck can you be more offended than the actual victim? Yeah, the guy actually said something about Yang, so how are you more affected than Yang when the guy was making a racist joke towards Yang? Also explain to, oh yeah, I read that. Overall, your comment is cringe and is clearly biased against Yang. Good day. His smugness bothers me quite a bit. Yang's smugness? I mean, he wasn't. It's funny he wasn't smug at first, but since his popularity is rising, he's relishing in the support. It's amazing. He's getting really happy about it. I'm sure he wasn't expecting it to be this big. He thought probably he'd do a little well this time, and then next time he'll do better. But it's like going so well that he's like, wow, people are actually liking what I'm saying and converting quicker than I thought. How long will it be before the Yang Gang find this post and prove us wrong with memes and infographics? Wow, you really got him. Yang Gang is not even bothering. Yang is the only guy who actually gets it. Bernie said robots aren't going to take our jobs, and Yang is a sounding alarmist. I have huge respect for Bernie and truly love some of his policies, but what the fuck? None of his political candidates can grasp where we are. For example, nobody is talking about laws of ethics to govern as we foray into the AI world. This is a huge problem that, frankly, no politician or no country is addressing. Andrew Yang is the first ever to actually even talk about this, yeah? Regulating AI, emerging technologies. It's one of his policies. There is also a reason why people like Barack Obama, Elon Musk, Mark Z, and many tech visionaries are advocating for universal basic income. Yang calls it a freedom dividend. It's not a funny gig. It's a well thought out plan. Yeah. It's already begun. Esther is truly braving the Yang Gang wrath here. There's not much of a wrath. People are just talking. I think it started before you submitted this comment. Yeah, they're making fun of people coming in here and defending their candidate. Why not? Why shouldn't they be able to, If you're going to put out an article bashing a candidate, you should expect that people will come in and try to talk to you on the other side. I dropped out of this article at the sentence where you say that he needs to get behind candidates who actually have substantive ideas. Like him or not, Yang has more specific policy proposals about a broad range of topics than any other candidate. And he had them from the start of his campaign, while all the other current candidates are slowly trying to figure out what specifics they need to get behind to distinguish themselves, blah, 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 blah. Very true. Well, it's getting a bit late, and I think I might end this. But I'll read the chat and talk to you guys for a few minutes more before I do. I think we kind of get the idea of what the people are saying. What do you guys think? Anybody have any thoughts on this? I think I do think Yang is the best candidate on the Democratic side. There aren't really any candidates on the Republican side except for Trump. Not a big fan of Trump. I'm not a big hater of his either, but I'm not a big fan of his. I don't feel like, even in this 2.5 years Trump has been president, or is it 3 years now, I don't feel like there's been much of a change. I don't know if you guys feel like there has been. I feel like there's been more divide. I'm not going to actually blame that on him, because I think people do that to themselves. But it's there. It's happening. Yeah, there's a lot of disenfranchisement going on. Things aren't going well. There's just a huge divide. Things are getting crazy polarized. I think Yang is the best candidate to stop polarization of politics. He's somewhere in the middle, which is I always wanted. I've always thought the bipartisan politics is bullshit, that there's either right or left and that's it. I always thought there should be a middle candidate, a party that sits in the middle and tries to mediate, But all right, I don't think anybody else is talking in the chat for now. Nessa, thank you so much for the super chat. I'm so disappointed with the Dem Party right now. Yeah, everybody else in the Dem Party sucks. The only person I like is Yang. I mean, everybody else has issues. Tulsi's not so bad, but she's just overly focused on foreign affairs, which is an issue I have with Yang. He's not focused on foreign politics at all. So that's why I think that they actually would go well together. Like if it was Yang president and Tulsi vice president, it would be great, because you have one person who focuses on foreign affairs and one person that focuses on domestic problems, That would work out well. I mean, Biden has basically gone senile. Bernie's old as fuck and has old solutions to new problems. Warren, another one, she's way too SJW. Same thing with Kamala Harris. Yep, he seems like a good choice. Sadly, I can't vote for him. I don't think a German is allowed. No, it's only U.S. citizens. Nor would you benefit from UBI either. You have to be a U.S. citizen. But, yeah. I like talking about him. He seems like a sincere guy. I like his personality as well. Yeah, see you, Shane. Yeah, I'm about to end this anyway, so thank you guys for popping up and listening to me talk about this and go through this article. Thanks for your input as well. I enjoyed that. really good conversations and talking about it. I like to hear counter arguments, but I mean, like I said before, please be kind of aware of the information before you do. I'm not going to sit here and talk for half an hour telling you about how it works because that's a waste of our time. When you can look it up, come back here, and maybe next time talk to me. Maybe I'll do another live stream next week about it. See you guys. Again, thank you.